Stand up, New York Giants fans. Figured I'd do a Saturday night stream. Being that I haven't made much content this week, Giants got a big, game. I'll call it a game coming up tomorrow. I know that we're 1-4, and a lot of people are down with all the injuries that the New York Giants have had, myself included. But we got the Rams coming to town. We know our upcoming schedule coming up, and not going to be an easy game. Rams coming in at 4-1. I'll talk about some of the things that I think maybe the New York Giants could look to exploit tomorrow if they feel like they have any chance to win this football game. Of course, we played the Rams last year. It was a pretty close game, but that was a different team, right? You had Jared Goff at the quarterback this year. They bring back Matthew Stafford. One thing that I was surprised with when I looked at the Rams, and granted they've gone, and we're going to go over their schedule and who they've played. I'm going to pop that up on the screen in a second after I talk to some of you guys in the chat, but their defense has been much worse than I thought it would be to start the year. I think they're 23rd in yards against. But they have played like I said, a relatively hard schedule. They are 4-1. We all know that, a lot of people, picked them to go to the Super Bowl before the year started. Really good football team. We know there's going to be a challenge tomorrow. Word is that I think Andrew Thomas is questionable as of now, which is not the best of news. We'll see what the New York Giants decide to do there, whether or not, if he's unable to play, they play Parrott on the left side instead of Solder, who really struggled there last weweek. Looks like Tony's good to go. Hopefully, I think he's still questionable, but it sounds like he's probably going to play. Galladay is out. Saquon's out. And I think Sterling Shepard's going to play. Slayton, I think, is going to be out as well. So we'll see how the New York Giants match up. I appreciate each and every one of you guys for being here, and figured I'd talk to you guys for a bit before the game tomorrow, and let's talk some New York Giants football. What's going on, man? I'm in line, Chris, at Whataburger. Tell me what I don't even remember what I got at Whataburger last time I went there. All of it was really good. I got a really good burger. That's all I can tell you. I can't remember exactly what I got. I think I got cheeseburger, but it's fantastic. What's going on there, sports influencer, man? Thanks for popping in. Stat Pad Tony. Yeah, listen, man, I know a lot of Giants fans based off of last week were super excited about Kadarius Tony, and rightfully so, right? We're looking for something to be optimistic about, and Kadarius Tony had a really good performance. He had 189 yards or whatever it may be, but that's not something I'm going to go crazy about. The New York Giants lost by 24 points, and hopefully Tony can continue to do that, and hopefully we win some football games. You look great, stat pad or not. He looked really good last week. He was able to create quick separation, and we'll see how he does, going up against the Rams. The one thing with the Rams that you definitely got to worry about, of course, Cooper Kupp has had a fantastic year in the slot. The chemistry that he's been able to develop with Matthew Stafford this year has been unbelievable. I think he's got like 550 yards and 5 touchdowns through 5 games. So that he's been their primary weapon this year. If there's one thing, when I was really looking at their numbers that I think the New York Giants might be able to take advantage of, the Rams that have not been able to run the ball at all this year, and that's something we've really struggled with. I knew that was going to be a big problem going up against the Cowboys last week. Maybe we could do a little bit better in the run department. They're only averaging 3.7 yards per carry, and their run defense actually isn't very good either, but we're going to go over the numbers in a couple of minutes. Danny, man, thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. Can you say young Joka from me? I know I know a lot of Giants fans are excited about young Joka, and yeah, man, I hope he goes out there and he bowls. The one thing that I'll definitely have my eyes on going into this game is obviously now there's going to be a lot more eyes on young Joka. Now he's going to be your number one option with Kenny Galladay out. He's going up against an unbelievable corner in Jalen Ramsey. We'll see if the Rams put him on him, but that's obviously going to be a storyline going into this game as well. How do the Rams adjust against Kadarius Tony in terms of how do they defend him? I'm sure teams are going to get some tape on him and they'll make some adjustments, but Tony looks like he's the real deal. Definitely looks like a good first-round pick at this point in time. Template, man, thank you very much. Not expecting a win tomorrow. Just hope we cover. Yeah, last I checked, I think the spread went down. And by the way, I got a couple of video callers in the background. I'm going to pop them in about 15, 20 minutes. But last I checked, I think the spread was like 9.5, 10.5. Now, last I saw, I think it was like 6.5. Maybe that's changed since then. Maybe it's 6.5, 7. I don't know, 7.5. But I think that's right around where it will be. I think a lot of Giants fans going into this game, rightfully so, probably think we're going to get absolutely blown out. And I, by no means I am completely prepared for that being a possibility. I think it's going to be closer, though. I think the Giants will surprise us, and they'll keep it within about a touchdown. I think I got the Rams, but I think the Giants can find a way to keep this relatively competitive, being that the Rams are traveling across. But, of course, the one thing that you really got to worry about in this game is, if Andrew Thomas doesn't play, well, then maybe my opinion changes drastically, with Matt Parrott and Nate Solder at the 2 tackle spots going against this Rams defense. But we'll see, man. Paul, man, thank you very much, man. We got to have this one. Listen, man, if they ever won this one, and by no means am I predicting we're going to win at all, my outlook on the season would change. I mean, you know, you look at our upcoming schedule. I say it all the time, but you look at the Raiders now after you know, the John Gruden thing, and I'm sure they're not, you know, they're not really in it the same way that they were before. They haven't looked too good the last 2 weeks. You look at the Panthers, kind of the same thing. You look at the Bears, the Dolphins are 1-4. So if they ever did win this game, I would at least have a little bit of hope that this team could turn it around and have a semi-successful season. But obviously, it's going to be a really tall task going against the Rams. Rolly, man, thank you very much. I finished listening to the rest of Talking Giants last night. Why you have to do me like that? That was funny impersonating me. You might got Rolly. You know I'm just messing with you, man. Let's go and thanks for popping in, man. I appreciate it, man. I think the chat likes it when we go back and forth sometimes, so makes for a more entertaining stream. What's going on there, Jeffrey? Man, he says go Rams. Yeah, well, you guys should be excited. Matter of fact, let's jump into the Rams right now in terms of what they bring to the table. And obviously, we know they're really good. They've played 5 games this year. They played the Chicago Bears. They played at the Indianapolis Colts. They played the Tampa Bay Bucks. They played the Arizona Cardinals. And they played at Seattle. So you're talking about 5 good teams. I mean, outside of the Bears, who are 3-2, but, you know, I'm not super high on them. But outside of them, I think the Colts are much better than their record indicates. They've played some very challenging teams. They beat them by 3. They beat the Tampa Bay Bucks, of course, the defending Super Bowl champs, kind of their signature win this year, by 10. They lost to Arizona, which is a bit of a surprise going into that game at home by a field goal. And then last week they went to Seattle and won by 9. So Rams have played a challenging schedule, and they've looked good doing it. In terms of their overall defensive numbers, though, and like I said, take schedule into account, they played some good teams. Their yards against were really surprising to me when I looked at it. 23rd in yards against, 12th in points against those. So the defense has held up good in that area, going up against some pretty good offenses. And offensively, they're top 9 in both categories, yards and points for. If there's one thing that I could look at that, like I said, maybe the New York Giants stand a chance to keep this competitive. They have not done a very good job in terms of running the football. They're only averaging 3.8 yards per carry. Maybe if you make Stafford one-dimensional, you could find a way to create a couple of turnovers. But the New York Giants will have to be able to cash in if they're able to do that. And teams have been able to run pretty effectively against them, 4.5 yards per carry. So we'll see tomorrow, and, you know, whether or not New York Giants can step up. But I talk about the same, you know, keys to the game every week. And, you know how I know, you know, and I try to convince myself as a fan, much like all you guys. But you know, like how I know when I really step back and think about it, that this New York Giants team just simply isn't that good. When your team, you know, you look at the Dallas Cowboys last week when they played us, and we know that they're a much better team than we are. You know, if you're not being completely biased. Dallas played a really sloppy football game. They played a really sloppy football game. They had a lot of penalties. They had the turnover with Dak where he mishandled the snap. You know, Dak threw an interception on the first drive. But the reason why I say to myself, this is how I know the New York Giants are a bad football team. Every week I see us play opponents. They make mistake after mistake after mistake, and they're able to overcome it. The New York Giants, if they make one mistake, I just feel like they can't win football games. I just feel like that's the way that we are as a football team, and it's been that way for the last 3 or 4 years. I mean, last year against Washington, the New York Giants created 5 turnovers in that game, and they won by 3 points. They won the turnover battle by 5. So this team needs to get much better on both sides of the ball, and hopefully they progress throughout the course of the year. But, of course, it's going to be the same keys this week as it is every week. The New York Giants are not a team that can afford to beat themselves, whether it be with penalties, whether it be with turnovers. And we'll see if they're able to do it this week. Amit, man, thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. Hey, Chris, I'm learning more and more about the NFL scouting report, and film study is vastly advanced than in the early 90s. You really have to be a very savvy defensive coordinator to disguise coverage as well. Amit, man, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate that. And listen, man, we're seeing it this year in terms of our defensive coordinator. The one game where I really thought that Patrick Graham did a really good job in terms of disguising his coverages was against the Atlanta Falcons. But outside of that, man, I have not been in love with his defensive game plans. Last week, of course, we were outmatched. We all know that going into that game, going against that Dallas Cowboys offense. But yeah, man, you're absolutely right. I mean, the defenses in today's NFL are much more complex than they've ever been, especially a defense that we run. And the type of defense we run, we're not going to be the type of defense where, you know, back in like the early 2000s with those teams, the teams I grew up loving, the Super Bowl teams, where we kind of just beat you in the trenches. We have a different type of defense where we have to try to create pressure through scheme and deception, whether it be through blitz, whether it be through coverage. And so far this year, quite frankly, we're just not getting the job done. We have not been able to get after the opposing quarterback. But Amit, man, thank you very much. But yeah, there's tons of great film breakdowns on YouTube. I don't dive into that because I know that's not my strength. But Bobby and Justin do a fantastic. Bobby, I think, does the film breakdown, but both of them do a great job on that channel. But there's so many great channels that do great film breakdown, whether it's the Giants or whether it's anybody else. Yuri, man, thank you very much. Can we play Andrew Thomas? I understand this whole Judge and Nate Solder and New England ties, but he's washed. I don't trust him versus Aaron Donald. Well, he's not going to go up against Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald's going to be in the interior. Aaron Donald is, of course, a guy that you really worry about going into this game as well. I will say last year, Giants actually did a damn good job against him. Now, that was Nick Gates. Nick Gates isn't going to be playing today in this game, but the Giants actually held up pretty nicely against Donald last year. But Solder won't be going up against Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald's on the interior, so he won't really, maybe here and there, but, throughout the majority of the game, he won't be matched up on Nate Solder. But I wouldn't trust Nate Solder against me. I mean, the way that he looked last week, I think he had a 38 grade. He was giving up constant pressure. And if we're forced to go with Matt Parrott and Nate Solder in this game, I think you got to put Parrott on the left side. You got to at least give Jones a better blindside protector because Solder just was not getting the job done last week, man. And quite frankly, he looks washed. I know he looked pretty good a couple of weeks ago. He looked pretty good in the I think it was against the Saints where the offensive line was getting the job done overall. But overall, he just does not look like near the same player. Even with his first year with the Giants, doesn't look nearly as good as that player. Jetman, thank you very much. Hey, Chris, would love to talk to you before the show ends. Yeah, Jetg, I don't know if you follow me on Twitter. If you do, send me a message. That's how the 5 guys that are waiting to come on, I sent them messages before the show. I don't want to take random callers because the issues I had last time I did this show. But if you want to private message me on Twitter, I'll definitely send you the link and you can come on. I don't know if you have a Twitter, but if you do, absolutely, man. But he says I'd love to talk to you before the show ends. Would love to talk some Giants. Always love the shoes all the time. Let's go, Daniel Jones. Let's go, Daniel Jones is right, and I'm excited. I'm excited, man. I'm excited to see Daniel Jones ready to go. I know a lot of Giants fans going. That's another thing we'll talk about, I'm sure, throughout the show when I bring on the video guests and in the chat and everything else. I know that's been widely talked about by a lot of Giants fans this week. Are the Giants rushing Daniel Jones back? Is it in the best interest of the player, being that, he had a concussion last week? And I've given my opinion on Bad Dog's channel. And, I said it's up to the doctors, man. That's their job to go through the test. And if the doctors cleared him, they said he's good to go, I see no problem with Joe Judge putting him out there. A lot of people talk about that they're scared that it could be something that's reoccurring. But I'd have that same fear if he came back in 2 weeks. It's not like that goes away. You look at all these players, like I said, Steve Young was a quarterback I brought up that had chronic concussion problems. And if the doctor feels Jones is ready to go and he doesn't see any, lingering side effects, I see no problem with putting Jones out there this week, and hopefully he can get the job done, man. I don't think he should play, just an opinion. Hey, man, no, like I said, I know that there's a lot of Giants fans that have that opinion going into this game. I don't really view it on the same wavelength of like last year when he came back when he was physically injured. Not to say that a concussion, that's obviously a physical injury to your brain, but when he clearly was not the same player, I thought they rushed him back earlier than they should. This, to me, if they feel like he's completely mentally capable and he has no lingering side effects, I don't see an issue bringing him back this week. Bavit, man, what's going on, buddy? He says, aren't you the guy from Insomnia Sport? Yes, that was what's up, Bavit, man? Glad I got to meet Bavit at a Mets game. That was awesome. I don't know how I knew it was you, but I did. But glad to see you, Bavit. And yeah, that was a spin-off channel for about a month. Maybe in the future I'll do another spin-off channel where I talk broad NFL sports. And there he goes. Aren't you the entertainer talking movies? I am. So Bavit, you actually know me from my spin-off channels. You don't know me from the entertainer talking sports. Well, I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that you found the channel. And Bavit's the man, dude. Been with me really since day one. I remember he was the guy that actually trolled me in my New York Giants live stream where I got completely drunk and I thought a spider was on my chair. That was Bavit that did that. But glad to see you, Bavit, man. What's going on, buddy? Talk Knicks. I'm going to be talking Knicks. I know a lot of people are going to want me to talk Knicks tonight. Obviously, we're talking Giants. The game's tomorrow, but I'm going to have a live Knicks show Tuesday. I'm going to have JD Sports Talk on the channel. I'm going to be talking live Knicks on Tuesday before opening night. The first game's on Wednesday. I'm going to be doing every play-by-play for every game that I can. And I'm going to be doing a live Knicks show every Friday midday with JD Sports Talk. So there will be a lot more Knicks content up on the channel in season. So there you go. Aren't you the guy from What Do You Say? I am. What's up, Avit, man? What's going on there? Lowe's Collect Spanish popping in the stream, man. What's up? Stand up. What's going on there? Zahad, man. Thanks for popping in, buddy. Rich and Joey G says, "What's up, Chris? Miss you this week too." And for let's blanket go. Yeah, Joey, man. Like I said at the top of the stream and on Bad Dog Stream last night, I'm a fan like everybody else. I try to give you guys daily content, but like this week, it just like I don't know, man. It hit me, man. Just like it hits all you guys, I'm sure, with this team from time to time. And I just said, man, I need to take step back, take a breather. I want to be able to think things through. I don't want to be too reactionary and completely trash this team every day of the week. And, that's the way I feel right now. And, I need to take a little bit of a breather and see how they play this week. And we'll take it one week at a time. But I need a little bit of a breather this week, guys. But I appreciate you popping the stream, man. What's going on there? Ian Mannix popping in. Royal Money says trade Barkley. We're not going to be able to trade Barkley. The trade deadline is in 2 weeks. And last I checked, teams aren't going to be looking to trade for an injured player. So I don't expect Saquon Barkley to be traded by the New York Giants before the trade deadline. If they were ever going to trade him, I suppose it could happen in the offseason, but not going to happen but before the trade deadline this week. And Will, man, thank you very much. Why did the spread move? Is it an important Ram out? Yeah, well, maybe I'm wrong on that. I thought I saw. Matter of fact, let me take a quick look at the spread right now, and then we're going to pop on our first video guest. But I thought that I saw it was like 9.5 or 10 at one point. Let me see the current odds. All right, at least I don't know if this is updated. This says -8, and that was it says as of 9 hours ago. I think it opened at like -9.5, -10. So I'm with you, man. I'm a little bit surprised that it would move. The only reasoning that I could guess as to why it moved in the Giants' direction would be that maybe when they made the spread, they assumed Daniel Jones was not going to play, being that he was coming off the concussion. And maybe that made up for about 2 or 2.5 points, being that I think it was 10.5 when the spread came out. I'm guessing that. That's my assumption because I assumed that as a fan after he got the concussion and you saw the way that he looked last week when he was stumbling off the field. I guessed that he was probably not going to play this week. So my guess is Vegas kind of had that, milked into the spread. And then when they found out that Jones was going to play, people started betting the Giants heavy and it dropped the spread to 8 as it is now. So that would be what I think is the logical conclusion there. Mike, man, thank you very much, man. DJ got right up and wobbled. Most stayed down. Looked worse than it was. Yeah, I think that had a lot to do with why a lot of fans are like reluctant to, see him play there because of the optics of the whole situation, right? Had he got a concussion and he didn't get up and looked like he was a dazed boxer, maybe some Giants fans wouldn't be as, as hesitant to want to see him play this week. But a concussion is a concussion. If the doctor cleared him, I think he's good to go, man. And hopefully, he goes out there and he bowls out tomorrow. Leonardo, man, thank you very much, man. Garrett's still here. He's on the Cowgirls payroll. Well, they're not firing Garrett anytime soon this year, in my opinion, at least. And he's not going to be back. I would be shocked if Garrett's back at the end of this year. But, as I've said several times, man, and I think the Giants kind of gave you this hint going into the year. Gettleman talked about it. Judge talked about it. They said that they don't want him to have to learn a third scheme in 3 years, a fourth scheme in 4 years, if you count his days with Duke. And if I'm being honest, and I know you and several others, and a lot of it logical and reasonable, are not keen, not big fans of Jason Garrett. But what I will say, to me, he has not been the biggest problem with this team this year. He just hasn't. I think obviously injuries have been a big issue, but I think Patrick Graham needs to be getting a lot more blame than he's been getting this year. The defense has not come close to living up to expectations. And to me, that's been by far the biggest disappointment of this team so far to date. Whether it be the players not performing up to snuff or whether it be Patrick Graham not making adjustments from within the game and coming out with a good defensive game plan. But I really don't think Garrett's going to be fired. I mean, I maybe I'll be wrong. But I don't think he's going to be fired by year's end. I just don't think he'll be fired from within season, but we'll see. Maybe my opinion will change as the year progresses. I thought after 3 weeks, it was possible they were going to make changes after they lost to the Falcons. And the most logical change would have been Garrett due to the fact that he had no connections to Joe Judge. And that was a move that would kind of make the fan base happy. You're not going to fire Gettleman and make the fan base happy, but that's not going to do anything in terms of improving this year's roster. So I thought the Garrett move was possible then, but I don't know, man. I'd be surprised if at this point in time, at least, if they moved on from Garrett in season. Amid, man, thank you very much. If Jason Garrett calls that play on first down instead of third down, does DJ slide and live to play another down rather than putting pressure to score a touchdown? And obviously that's the golden question, right? I mean, watching the game, a lot of us, when it first happened, I said a lot of people were blaming Garrett for that. And I understand. And I was as fair as I could be. I even said it on Twitter after the fact. I don't think that was the ideal call in that scenario. But I'm not blaming that on Garrett. I'm just not. To me, that looked like it was a broken play as well. Kyle Rudolph kind of missed his block. I don't know if Rudolph should have been a passing option on that play. I don't know if it was supposed to be a handoff. It looked like there was some miscommunication on that play. But if it was me if I go back in time, I would whisper to Jason Garrett, maybe it's probably a better decision here to either try to run it again on third down at the half-yard line, or if you're going to use Daniel Jones, use a sneak up the middle. We see Tom Brady do it all the time when you're on the goal line. If you can't get it in from the half-yard line 2 times running the football, you don't deserve to score a touchdown. And that's my take on it. Now, I understand Daniel Jones has mobility. At the 5, I think that play is more justifiable. At the half-yard line, I think you got to try to punch it up the middle, whether it be a QB sneak or whatever else it may be. So wasn't in love with the play call, but I'm not going to be a guy that's going to come out here and blame Jason Garrett for Daniel Jones' injury. And Lou, man, thank you very much. And we're going to bring on, let me see, who should I bring on first? We're going to bring on Elvis first. Let me shrink him down. Let me just read Lou's chat real quick, and then we're going to get to Elvis. Lou, man, thank you very much. Why is everyone so quick to trade Barkley? Would they trade Christian McCaffrey, and he's back on IR? Come on, man. Well, that's the thing. We're not trading Barkley for that reason alone. The only thing that would make sense in terms of trading Saquon Barkley this year would be if you felt like he wasn't going to be a part of the team in the future, which is very possible, but we don't know who's going to be our general manager, and we don't know, how he's going to look throughout the rest of the season and what the plan is going to be going forward. But when he's injured, there's no way you're going to be able to trade him. As far as McCaffrey goes, I just don't think he's tradable with the contract that the Panthers signed him to. I don't see any team rushing out to trade for him based off some of the injuries that he sustained since he got that huge contract extension. So I don't see Christian McCaffrey getting traded anytime soon. And right now, it's just impossible to trade Barkley based off the fact that he's going to be injured during the trade deadline. But what's going on, man?
Hey.
Elvis is a great subscriber of mine. He's been asking to come on the channel for a couple times. Huge Knicks fan as well. Looking forward to talking Knicks with you in the future. But where's the pumpkins, man?
No pumpkins this year because I'll smash every single one of them. Because that's how bad the season has been going. Now, having said that, I don't think I would start Daniel Jones this week. I really don't. Because a lot of it's one thing that the medical cleared him, and that's fine. But a large part of the Giants' offense this year has been RPO and designs run for Daniel Jones. I believe he's the leading rusher on the team right now. I'm not sure, but I think he is.
I think he is. I don't have the stats in front of me. I think you're right on that.
So if you're Garrett, after a concussion week, how many times are they going to design run Daniel Jones or RPO in? And if you're not going to play to your strengths, what's the point?
That's a fair point. That's a fair point because I agree with you. It's more than likely that they're not going to look to utilize his legs more so this week. And if they do, he better do a much better job in terms of getting out of harm's way, sliding, getting out of bounds. But that's a good point. Now, it's very possible that they are more reluctant to call running plays because of that. So my answer to that is this, and I agree with you, by the way. I don't think they're going to call a lot of running plays. Yep. I still think he's a better option than Mike Glennon, even if he can't use the legs. And I know Glennon looked pretty good last week. And some Giants, I know, well, he underthrew the pass. He turned it over twice, but he looked okay. But
I personally think we're going to see a lot of 3-step drop, a lot of quick passes, screens. Yeah. They're going to get the ball out of his hands quick. And
I think they're going to try to establish the run. And I just don't know if they're necessarily going to be successful doing it. But I agree with you. I think they got to try to maybe roll him out, throw on the run, get him out of the pocket, get him out of harm's way. Like you said, quick throws, get Tony out quick in open space. You're not going to be able to use Barkley in the pass. He's not going to play, but maybe utilize Sterling Shepard a lot. Obviously, him and Jones had a lot of chemistry, a lot of quick routes, over the middle routes. I agree with you on that. I think that's the way that they're going to attack offensively this week.
And then with the run game, I mean, listen, we have a bad offensive line. I get it. But I looked up the stats today. Booker has had 23 carries for the season and is averaging 2.8 yards. He can't. Brightwell cannot be any worse than that. It's the same thing with Tony. Tony rides the bench for 2, 3, 4 games, and then he has his breakout game. It can't get any worse. Just try the rookie. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, the one thing, and I want to talk about Tony. The one thing that I really liked about Tony last week, and they only did it once, and it's something I've been calling for this entire offseason that I want to see with him is Wildcat. They used it near the goal line. They used it in the red zone. And one thing I will say, maybe to try to offset the inability to use Jones's legs at a normal capacity this week, maybe they use a little bit more wildcat this week with Tony out of the shotgun, because they got to find ways to try to create big plays against this Rams defense. I think that is something that maybe they have to think long and hard about doing this week. Use that a little bit more this week. It worked the one time that they used it. And when you use the wildcat, you kind of have an extra blocker out there because Tony's essentially.
That's actually, I agree with you that, because if you're not going to run Daniel, just run the wildcat and let's see what happens. Yeah,
I'm not saying do it, 20 times, but pick your spots here and there. And I think that could be a useful weapon from within this game. But I'm with you, man. I'm not rushing to put Daniel Jones in harm's way coming off a concussion. So I mean, maybe he'll run on his own if the play breaks down, but I don't see them going a lot of design runs. I think that's a good call by you.
You want to put money on it that a play will break down? Because that
Nate Solder's playing. Andrew Thomas is not. There's going to be plays that break down. I promise you that.
Yeah. He's going to be running for his life tomorrow.
Yeah. Let me just read this. Maybe we'll feed off of some of these. Joey, man, thank you very much. It's too early to blow this up. Whole season left. All right. Yeah, I'll speak on that. I'll let you speak on that as well. I mean, I agree. I think it is too early. We're 1-4. I had it starting 2-4. Now I'm telling you right now, I'm not expecting playoffs, but I agree with you. It's too early to blow it up. And the other thing I'll say, Joey, and I've kind of said it in my more recent videos, I don't think they could blow it up if they wanted to. Who is trading for Kenny Golladay with his $72 million contract? Who's trading for Saquon Barkley with his injury? Who's trading for Adoree Jackson with his contract? So even if they wanted to blow it up, I don't think that's a viable option. Now, there's going to be players on this team that won't be back. They're not going to be able to sign Jabril Peppers. Logan Ryan, you're not going to be able to trade with his contract. The guy's like 32 years old. So I don't think they could blow it up if they wanted to, if I'm being honest with you, going into next year. But, yeah, I guess I'll let you speak on that as well, my man.
I mean, what is there to blow up? But Galladay's out, so we don't.
And nobody's taking that contract.
Yeah. Nobody's taking that contract. Do we know what we have in Gates? Because he changed positions to center last year, so we cut him a break. He wasn't the greatest center, but he looked like a promising start of the season. So you're going to keep Gates. Shane, are you going to get rid of Shane? You're not going to get rid of Shane.
No reason to. It makes nothing.
Exactly. Then who's the defensive player again? It's that we just signed to a big
Azeez Ojulari?
No,
Adoree Jackson?
In the offseason, the lineman.
Leonard
Williams. Nobody's going to take that contract.
Oh, yeah. Nobody's taking that contract. Yeah.
So what is there to blow up? And to be fair, I don't think it's fair to blow it up because we don't know what we have in Daniel Jones because that offensive line is that bad. It's a patchwork offensive line. Shane Lemieux is a fifth, sixth rounder. Matt Pert is technically a fourth rounder. Will Hernandez shouldn't be a starter. I mean, if you're going to blow anything up, you got to look at Garrett. Gettleman. Plain and simple.
Well, Gettleman's gone. Yeah. Unless this team wins at least 8 games, I don't think Gettleman will be back. But I think you hit on the head with the offensive line. The problem is life in the NFL is not always fair, and we saw with the Jets last year. I don't think it was Darnold's fault. Not that Darnold's great, but I don't think it was his fault. I think the Jets put him in the worst situation possible, and he couldn't succeed. So if you bring in a new GM and you have early picks, it's you got to be honest and say that it is a possibility that they could elect to draft
the quarterback. The biggest thing for a young quarterback is confidence. And what confidence are we giving Daniel Jones when he's getting absolutely killed?
Listen, man, we saw this year in the Saints game what he's capable of doing when you could provide him with protection.
Exactly.
And, and I'm not saying he's an otherworldly quarterback, but there's not many quarterbacks that are going to be able to play in the conditions that the New York Giants have set Daniel Jones up with and what they set Eli Manning up with the last 6 years of his career. So I'm with you, man. I you know that, man. You watch my
channel.
Look
at Patrick Mahomes. I mean, he didn't look like Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl because he was missing his 2 starting tackles.
You got to be able to block in the NFL. There's no hiding it. There's no doubt about it. John, man, thank you very much. If we did the deal with the Cards, what would you have wanted in return for Ingram? Yeah, I saw that deal. I don't remember what they got for Zach Ertz. It wasn't a lot. I mean, for Ingram, you weren't going to get much. I mean, he's a free agent at the end of the year. He's not really performing. He's injury plagued. You would have been lucky to get a 5th-round pick for him if I had to guess. You wouldn't. I don't think you would have gotten much more than that. And you could at least make an argument that you might end up getting more than that if you leave him on the roster and he signs somewhere else at the end of the season and you get a comp pick. Because we're not going to be able to sign anybody next year, so I don't really see us offsetting any comp picks because that's kind of the rule. If you spend more than the guy that left your team, you lose that compensation pick. But we're negative $10 million of cap space right now. Yeah, we'll make some adjustments to get under the cap, but I don't see us going on a spending spree. So the way I look at it as far as Ingram goes, you're probably not going to get more in a trade than what you would receive in a comp pick. I mean, you'll probably get like a 5th-round comp pick for him at the end of the year if he walks and signs somewhere else. So I don't think you were going to get a whole lot for him. The only
bag
guy.
Of chips?
What'd you say?
A bag of chips.
Yeah, you get a bag of chips. Yeah. The only guy in this team that I could really see, that's tradable at this point that I could see them looking to trade because he's only got 1 year left on his deal, but he hasn't been playing nearly as good as last year, that maybe you could get a pretty decent price tag would be James Bradbury. But then you have to ask yourself, do you want Bradbury back next year? If you don't, who the hell is your cornerback going to be on the other side of Adoree Jackson next year? But that's the only guy that I could really see at least getting some decent of a price tag on this team. Pepper's a free agent at the end of the year, and he's a safety. It's not like that's the most important position in the world. So I don't really see the Giants having a guy that's going to get them a really high-quality draft pick before the trade deadline. And Zachary says, we need to get this win. Is the Pope Catholic? Let's talk about this game, Elvis. Chance to win this game.
Chance to win this game?
Yeah.
None. If Thomas is out, Galladay's out, it's because up the middle it's Billy at center and Billy Price at center, and he's going to get absolutely destroyed. So the run game is going to be non-existent. The pass game, I just pray for Daniel Jones at this point. The man is going to be running for his life. None at all. The Rams are going to just roll the Giants, and people talking about the spreads. I'll take the points because it's going to be way more than 8.5.
I don't blame Giants fans for feeling that way. I just know the Giants, and I agree they're going to lose. I just kind of like last year, I thought they were going to get blown out against. I just feel like maybe it'll be a backdoor cover. I don't know. Yeah. I just think they're going to keep it within a touchdown.
The Giants always play up to that competition and down to that competition.
Yeah, exactly.
Being a Giant fan for over 30 years, that's what they do.
And the other thing I'll say about this game, Elvis, and why I think it may be more competitive than some Giants fans may think, there's no real pressure in this game. Like last week, and the Saints game, there was really no pressure either. They started off 0-3. Then you get your win. You're going up against the divisional opponent. This week, you're 1-4. You're kind of just playing by the seat of your pants. Like, what do we have to lose? We're 1-4. So I don't know. Maybe that plays a little bit of a factor in them playing looser and
Graham is playing zone because he doesn't want to leave his corners and the safeties out in an island and man because there's no pass rush. So to compensate for the no pass rush, he's putting them in zone, and I think Stafford's just going to eat them up.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, Stafford scares the hell out of me this week.
Mm-hmm.
The way he's been able to throw the ball. I think he's got like 12 touchdowns so far this year, and Kupp's going to kill us in the slot. I mean, let's be real. I mean, our slot cornerbacks, I don't even know who it's going to be. Darnay Holmes, I get. Darius Williams is out for the year now, and I worry about. I think Kupp's going to have a day. If you play daily fantasy, make sure you have Cooper Kupp in your lineup tomorrow. So, I definitely worry about Stafford. I do think we could do a decent job. I hope at least, and I know our run defense has been so bad. But I do think that based off of at least the statistical evidence that I see, I do think we could do a decent job containing them in the run game. But like you said, man, Stafford, he's a beast. Sean McVay, an unbelievable offensive mind. Yeah. And if I was putting my money on which play caller is going to do a better job, Patrick Graham or Sean McVay, I'm going with Sean McVay. So,
especially if we get Love out there. Love, I don't know how he still has a roster spot. He just gets beat after beat by a wide receiver. It just makes no sense. And it takes me to McKinney. I had high hopes for McKinney, and McKinney is looking terrible this year.
Oh, yeah. McKinney's been the whole second. Well, yeah. I think Adoree Jackson's been okay. He's been all right. Like, I know he had the dropped interception, but I think he's been okay. Bradbury's definitely been underwhelming. Peppers has been super underwhelming. McKinney, you're absolutely right about McKinney and Logan Ryan, too, man. I mean, yeah. Something that we thought was going to be a big strength of this team. Going into the year, I would have told you for sure. Somebody said, what's the strongest unit on this football team? I would have said the secondary without hesitation.
Yep.
It's been not only underperforming, it's been well below average in terms of NFL standards. So that's been a shock to me. And I think if like the defense, if we were like 1-4 and the offense was still struggling and the defense was playing pretty well, I would have a different mindset going into this game. Like, I would be like, Maybe it's going to take the offense 5, because I always thought it was going to take 2, 3, 4 weeks for the offense to start to gel. But the defense for me was like a given. I was like, okay, they're going to have at least a league average defense. And I think that to me is by far the biggest reason why I'm like, if I'm being honest with you, I think we're going to win about 6 games now this year, because our defense has just been beyond disappointing. And the secondary has been the biggest culprit, because I think, and a lot of people say the pass rush, and rightfully so. I mean, we never get pressure on the quarterback. But I think because the secondary has been as poor as it's been, that's kind of lent itself to why we haven't been able to get pressure on the quarterback.
I said at the beginning of the season to all my friends, we have the best secondary in the NFL. I'm eating my words right now, because with Bradbury, with Adoree', with McKinney, with Peppers, with Holmes, I even Holmes as a nickel corner. Who's better than us? Everyone.
That's for sure, man. Elvis, I'm going to pop Max on, but I'm definitely going to pop you back on in about 45 minutes or so. I just want to give everybody an opportunity to ask a couple of questions. I'm going to pop everybody back on.
All right.
I appreciate you popping on, Elvis. I'll see you soon, buddy.
All right, bye.
Elvis is awesome. Richie, man, thank you very much. Says, what's up, Dana? Bradbury and Jackson look bad because we have zero pass rush. We need linemen and pass rush. I think it goes hand in hand. I think this year the Giants built their team based off the strategy that we're going to play a lot of man press. We're going to put Bradbury and Adoree' Jackson out on an island, and that's going to allow us to be more aggressive and send a lot of blitzes. And you kind of saw the New York Giants do that week 1 against Denver. They blitzed 50% of the time. It was ridiculous. They blitzed too much, and it didn't work. And I think that they've learned that they can't trust these corners as much as they thought they could have going into the year. And I think it's kind of limited the New York Giants to be less aggressive this year in terms of sending blitzes going after the quarterback. But you're absolutely right. Obviously, it goes hand in hand. If you have a much better edge rusher that could get quick pressure on the quarterback, it's going to make the secondary's job that much easier. But, I think the New York Giants obviously put a lot of emphasis on the secondary, and they thought that would be the strength of this defense, and it would help the weaker parts, that being the pass rush, kind of perform a little bit better than what they're, necessarily capable of doing. John, man, thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. He says, I don't understand why Patrick Graham continues to send Ryan on blitzes over Peppers. Ryan can't bring anyone down. Good call. And we've seen, and it's not just him. We've seen McKinney. Remember McKinney, I think it was week 1 against Denver, where Teddy Bridgewater just stiff-armed him and threw him to the ground. Darnay Holmes, when he was playing, they were sending him a lot on blitzes as well. But yeah, you're absolutely right. None of these guys in the secondary some of them have gotten there, but they haven't been able to bring the quarterback down. And if Patrick Graham plans to continue to take away Peppers' minutes as a safety, he should convert him to a linebacker. Yeah, a lot of people have said that, and I understand it, because I do think Peppers is better utilized in the box. I don't know if he could be an every down linebacker. I just don't necessarily think he has the size for it. But I did envision him having, that kind of role going into the year, at least kind of like a hybrid type player. But I don't think he'll ever be an every down linebacker. But I do think he's capable of being, a versatile piece on defense. John, man, thank you very much. Says, stand up, the entertainer. You guys have a lot of circumstances with your players. What can Joe Judge do to put these guys in a position to succeed? The first thing he could do is, have better clock management, maybe. Don't call the worst of timeouts. Maybe don't throw challenge flags when you're not allowed to challenge. The basics. He could do those things. He could do the things that he could control as a head coach. But at the end of the day, Joe Judge can't control everything that happens on the football field. And the New York Giants are weak. And in my opinion, outside of the quarterback, the two most important areas on a football team, and that's the trenches. Their defensive line's been piss poor this year. Their offensive line has been better than I thought it would be, but it's still not a strength of this football team. And until such time you get that work, and this team's not going to be able to be consistent. But yeah, Judge has definitely not done that good of a job, and hopefully the team responds and they have a much better second half. Otherwise, his job may be on the line. I know as an Eagles fan, I'm sure a lot of you guys are pissed off about Sirianni. He's not doing the best job there either. But a lot of Giants fans have been underwhelmed with the way the Judge has performed so far this year. But the only thing I could say, man, is he's got to be consistent. I guess like the one thing that Judge has to make sure happens more so than anything else for the rest of the year is these players keep fighting for him. This year you got more veterans on this team. You got a team coming into the year that had expectations. Last year was a bunch of rookies, and it was a first-year head coach, and he was trying to establish his culture. It's easy. When you have an uplifting message and you're new and you're trying to build something, now you got to show, you got to have some proof in the pudding. You have to have some results. And if these guys aren't winning and they don't feel like Joe Judge's methods are working, that's what I worry about as a fan. for the latter portion of the schedule. Can he keep this team focused and competing week in and week out? Diehard Giants fan, man, thank you very much. To be honest, I don't care. And glad to see you, Diehard. I don't care that I'm getting hate in this chat. Tell me why we're winning this game. It goes without saying. I hope I'm wrong. Realistic over the. I agree with you. I'm not picking us to win this game. I'm not picking us to win this game. I didn't pick us to beat the Cowboys. I didn't pick us to beat the Saints. I didn't pick us to beat Washington. Why would I pick us to beat the Rams? Going into the year, I had the Rams going to the Super Bowl. So, I mean, what I will say is never say never. It's the NFL, right? Any given Sunday, things can happen. You see crazy upsets every week, but am I picking the Giants? No. We're facing a much better football team, and on top of that, we're banged up. And Andrew Thomas may not be playing. So, I'm not going to deliver you guys a false message and tell you guys that I think the New York Giants are going to come out with some miracle this week and predict them to win. I hope I look like a fool. I hope they beat them. I didn't pick us to beat Seattle last year. Didn't think we had a chance in that game. We won. So maybe they'll make me look like a fool again this week, but there's no way in hell I'm picking the Giants based off the way they've looked and the injuries that they've sustained over the first couple of weeks. And Marley Marl says we're beating the Rams. Love it, man. Listen, man, it always makes me happy. I know some fans hate that. Me personally as a fan, I love when I see fans, even during the darkest of times, find ways to be optimistic and try to see some hope in their football team, because I try to be as optimistic as I can be, and I can't even be optimistic right now. I was so depressed about the way this team has played that I couldn't make content this week. But Marley Marl, man, I hope you're right, man. And, man, a lot of props to you, man, for staying faithful with your team, and hoping they can push forward and find a way to get a win, man. People have to love to hate on. No, there's no reason to hate on realistic fans, man. You guys have, myself included, I don't think we're going to win. I think this team's headed down a dark path this year. I don't think there's any reason to hate realistic fans right now. They're just saying what they see. But at the same time, man, I give fans credit, man, to stick through the team and, hope and think that they could find ways to get this thing going on the right path, man. It's a matter of opinion, and I try to respect everybody's opinions. Bob, man, thank you very much. Hopefully Jones builds on his Saints and Washington game, because if he takes a step back, I think his future is in jeopardy if there's a new GM. I mean, Bob, I think there's 12 games to go, and that's something we'll talk about throughout the stream. I'm sure when I bring matter of fact, I'm going to bring Max on now. I'm sure when I talk, I'm sure we'll talk about Daniel Jones. He's the quarterback. He's going to be a big topic of conversation. But I'm not going to just say this game. I think I got to see him for the next 12 games, see how he plays. And obviously, the GM is going to have a lot to do with it. I think here's what I'll say, man, about Jones at the end of the year. And we're not going to know until the end of the year what direction the New York Giants are going to go in. But if the Giants stick with Jones, I've already accepted and expect Dave Gettleman to be fired at the end of the year or retire, unless we have like an unforeseen run. But if they're going to stick with Daniel Jones, I think they hire a GM from within. That's my prediction. I don't think they bring in an outsider. I think, and it may only be a one-year experiment. They may be like, listen, we want to give Jones and Judge one more year. We're going to hire a guy from within the staff, and we'll give them 1 year to see if they can get this going on the right path. And if they don't, we're going to completely blow it up, especially with all the large contracts that they have on this football team, if they decide to stick with Jones. If they come to the conclusion that we're ready to move on from Daniel Jones and we want to either draft a quarterback or make a move, then I think they'll bring in an outsider GM, man. Max, man, what's going on, buddy? You're muted. Let me unmute you. I think I could unmute you.
I got it.
What's up, my man?
Sorry about that. I was muted backstage, and so when you brought me on, I forgot to unmute myself. But nothing much. Had a long day at work, home, making dinner, and enjoying some talking about Giants. But yeah, I mean, just listening to the chat, and obviously, as you guys said, we tend to play up and down to our competition. We always play the teams that we feel like there's no chance that we can win the hardest. I feel like so far the Saints have probably been our toughest opponent. I mean, division games are usually close. Maybe Cowboys,
but the Saints are good.
The reason I say the Saints is because I feel like they're more balanced on both sides of the ball. Like Dallas Cowboys defense, the only thing that's saving them right now is their turnovers.
That's fair.
They're not a good defense yet. Their offense is capitalizing on their turnovers, which is something we struggle with as a Giants team, So, but I think as a well-balanced team, the Saints is the hardest, and I mean we won that game. But as far as going into this Rams game and winning, like you said, that the team has given us nothing to believe that we can. But I do have the Giants at least covering the spread in this game, just because, like I said, I feel like we play those tougher teams closer than the teams that we're expecting the Giants to go and beat.
Listen, man, I'm with you. I'm not picking the Giants to win, but I'm picking them to cover, and I think it's for the same reason. I'm like, every time I think the Giants are going to do something, they always find a. I think as Pizzle says it, they always find a way to reel me back in, and it's true.
Yeah.
Like the Giants will always, and I'm not calling for a win, but I could see a more competitive game than a lot of people think going into this game. By no means am I not. I believe me, I am fully prepared to see a New York Giants lost by 20 points tomorrow too. I would not be shocked if that were to happen, but I'm with you, man. I do think it'll be like within a touchdown, and I think the Giants will keep it close. And all I ask going into this game, I want the same opportunity Jones had last year against the Rams. Have the ball the last drive and give Daniel Jones an opportunity to find a way to either send it to overtime or win the football game. So if you give me the same opportunity at last year going against this team, I'll sign up for it in a second.
Yeah, and just kind of going back to your comment that you said Cop Pizzle uses, like the team always finds a way to reel us back in. I think it was Authentic in the Beard I was watching the other day, and I kind of sent a super chat like jokingly, but it was kind of serious at the same time. Like, we come into the season, everybody's confident, we're playing the Broncos, we get killed. We go to Washington, everybody gets confident, we get killed, right? We go to week 3, Atlanta Falcons, everybody's like, this is...
Washington. We killed ourselves.
Yeah, we lost, right? So we go to week 3, everybody's like, okay, Atlanta Falcons, they're playing terribly, this is where we get our win, and we lose. And then the entire fan base lost all hope, right? So then we go into Saints week 4, and everybody's like, this is the toughest opponent we've had so far. We have 0 chance to win. The Giants find a way to win, and now everybody's like, oh, we can play the Cowboys. We have a chance to win this game. And then we lose to the Cowboys, and now I feel like everybody's lost all hope again. Right?
I think it was also the injuries too, Max. I think like if the Giants played the Cowboys a little bit closer and Jones was healthy and Thomas was healthy and Barkley was healthy, I think it'd be a little bit different mindset going into this week.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. But I also think that the fan base almost losing hope is a reason why I feel like maybe...
Why you have some hope.
Right. I feel like it takes everybody in the fan base just being so out on this team and just we're so bad, and then they go and get a win, and everybody's like, I didn't expect that. Now we do have a chance. So, and then kind of going back again earlier to the Daniel Jones conversation that you were having, I'm completely fine with him playing this week. If he's been cleared, a lot of people say that I have no way to confirm this, but I've heard it from people who obviously have heard it from inside sources that apparently Daniel Jones had cleared the concussion protocol Sunday during the game, and they chose to hold him out the second half of that game, which might explain why on Wednesday during that JoJo's press conference, Daniel Jones is not participating, but he's walking out there with his pads because he knew, right? It wasn't...
I heard the same thing, and I didn't even think about that. By the way, Jet G, if you're listening, I know I asked you to message me on Twitter. I saw your message. I sent the link, so if you're listening, I just put the link in there if you want to come on as a video guest. But I didn't even think about that, and I think that's a great point. We also, and I agree. I heard the same thing that they were cautious, but he was actually cleared during the game to come back in. And then he had the pads on, and you saw how Joe Judge was really concerned during the press conference. And a lot of people took that as Judge didn't know that Jones had the pads on. But the way I took that was Judge didn't want the Rams to know that, that Jones was headed towards playing that early in the week.
Right.
So, but if that's true, I think it had more to do with that than Judge actually not knowing that he had the pads on.
And with that being said, obviously, Daniel Jones has to... I don't think we have to take away Daniel Jones wanting to run tough. There are times to run tough and get the yards. Like, that was a perfect moment for him to try to run tough. But he does it all the time. I think it's a matter... Right. I think it's a matter of Daniel Jones understanding when to run tough and when to not. But I a lot of talk after that, especially from fans that I've heard, is should we stop running Daniel Jones or decrease the amount of runs that he's taking dramatically because he doesn't understand yet? And my answer to that is no, but I think because maybe he doesn't understand that yet, you run him in a certain place in the field. Like inside the 10-yard line, probably not best to put Daniel Jones' feet on a designed run, right? If he scrambles and he's got the lane, go take it. Right.
Especially at the 1. At the 5, you have a little bit more space. It's more understandable, but at the 1, give me a QB sneak there if you're gonna run him. Don't do the bootleg rollout. I didn't like it.
Right. I see you're getting some super chats, so if you want to get them so you don't
Oh,
lose them
yeah,
all,
yeah. I'll
but
read it real quick, man. Michael, man, thank you so much, man. Bank it. New York Giants 37, Rams 30. Michael, man, I absolutely love your prediction, and I pray that you're right. If the Giants are going to win, I would be shocked if we put up 37 points against the Rams. But I pray that you're right. If the Giants are going to win this game, I think it'll be, I don't remember what the score was last year, but I think it was like high 20s, low teens in that
I
area.
think it was 19-7 or something like that, 19-10.
We were within one touchdown, I thought. Weren't we on the
Were
last
we?
drive?
Or maybe
Yeah,
it
I
was
think it was
19-13, something
yeah,
like
I think
that.
maybe like 19-13. I think it'll be a game like that. Like if the Giants are going to win, it'll be like a 2019, 21, 20. Like it'll be really close in the low 20s. I'd be shocked if we put up 37 points against the Rams. But all I care about is if we get the W. So I hope you're right, Michael. Zeke, man, thank you very much, man. 185.5 rushing yards allowed. But his defense, they have to tighten that up in order. They're averaging, no way. Is that what we're giving up? That's what we're giving up per game. Maybe I'm misreading that. 185.5. Let me take a quick look at that. Is that accurate? Hold on.
I'm not sure. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys just put up a bunch against us last week, and I know that the Saints ran all over us, so that could be padding those stats as well, those 2 games alone.
I'm going to look. I got it right here. The New York Giants this year, in terms of yards against on the ground, have surrendered 692 yards in 5 games. So it's not quite as high as he said. I'm trying to do the quick math. 5, bet we'll round up to 700 yards. That's about 140 yards a game on the ground, I think, per about 140 yards on the ground. Still bad, but maybe meant maybe over the last couple of weeks. But yeah, I mean, our run defense this year, Zeke, has been putrid. The one thing that we have going for us, I guess, in this game is the Rams haven't been able to run the ball well at all. I think they're averaging like 3.7 yards per carry. So hopefully we could do a better job in that area. But if that doesn't get tightened up, and Matt Stafford and this Rams passing offense with McVay have the ability to be able to throw the ball on us at will, kind of like Dallas did last week, it's lights out for our defense, man. They have to tighten that up in order to have a shot Sunday. Where is Leo? Leo has not been found. The one thing I will say about Leo, and I'm not trying to defend him, he's been bad. He hasn't come close to living up to that contract. He did start off slow last year. I don't, if I remember correctly, I don't think he got off to that hot of a start last year either. And then he kind of came on hot over the last 10, 11 games. And hopefully that'll be the case this year. But Leo has been MIA. And maybe some of that has to do with the fact that Dalvin's no longer on the line. I'm sure that has something to do with it, but definitely has not been worth that contract so far. What's your thoughts on Leo? What do you think? You think it's Dalvin, or do you think there's other factors?
I mean, I think losing Dalvin definitely affects Leo, but I think it was Leonard had 11.5 sacks last year, and I'm pretty sure 8 of those sacks came without Dalvin Tomlinson on the field. Dalvin Tomlinson and Dexter Lawrence were not on the field last year for 8 of Leonard Williams' 11.5 sacks. So I don't think, I mean, through 5 games this year, Leonard Williams' stats are pretty similar to, I mean, I think he has more pressures and more hits. But there is one category where he's lower. I can't remember where that is, but it's very similar through 5 weeks where he was last year. But I also think teams, because they don't have to worry about Dalvin as well, like I saw a clip where Leonard Williams had 3 defenders or 3 offensive linemen blocking him, like 3 men stopping Leonard Williams. So that could be another reason why he's not maybe showing as much on Sunday to our fan eyes, because teams are prepping for Leonard Williams, much like they prep for Aaron Donald.
It's a good point. He's obviously based off the year he had last year and the fact that you lost Dalvin. Now he's getting a lot more extra attention than he got last year. And because of our lack of talent, in terms of the edge rushers and the surrounding defense. And you know what? That is a great point by you, because if you look at Austin Johnson, he's got 3 sacks.
Right.
So maybe a guy like Austin Johnson, who barely, was hanging on by a thread in terms of even being an NFL player last year, maybe the reason that he's benefited is because, like you just said, a lot of teams are paying a lot more extra attention to Leonard Williams, and it's opening up some opportunities for him. But regardless, whether that is the case or not, this defensive line is not near what it was last year.
Right.
And John, man, thank you very much. Our season is lost. I just want to see Aaron Robinson and Ellerson Smith play over Zoe Carter, and think Leo needs to go back inside. He sucks outside. I think they'll move Leonard Williams around much like they did last year. He could play both the inside and the outside. I don't know. I think you get the job done in both areas. You're just not getting it done right now. And maybe, like I thought that was a great point. Maybe there's other factors to it than just Dalvin Tomlinson. Maybe he's getting a lot more extra attention. But as far as Smith goes, I think he was put on the PUP before the year started, so he can't come back, I think, until week 7, and I think the same applies for Aaron Robinson. But based off of all the injuries that we have at the slot, with Kadarius Williams out for the year, the fact that Darnay Holmes can't see the field, I don't think it'll happen right away. But my guess would be with Aaron Robinson, probably after the bye, which I think is around week 10. He'll probably see the field shortly thereafter. So I would expect to see Aaron Robinson probably the last 6 or 7 games this year get an opportunity with the Giants at that slot cornerback spot. It doesn't look like that they have a lot of trust in Darnay Holmes right now at that position.
No. And to be honest, even with Rodarius Williams going down, I don't know if I expect to see much of Darnay Holmes. They might try to I know they've been putting Adoree Jackson in the slot occasionally. And Julian Love has been getting some slot snaps, and maybe they start to use their safeties a bit more to cover, whether that be Xavier McKinney or Jabril Peppers coming off of the injury. You might see a slight increase for what Darnay Holmes has been getting because he just hasn't been on the field, but I don't necessarily expect him to get like 60 to 80% of the snaps just because Rodarius Williams went out.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to read a couple of these. I missed them here, but I got them here, guys. So I still got you. John, man, thank you very much. Being objective with Hurts not being good, and it's obvious he hasn't been good, and if there was potential of him improving, does Sirianni play a part? Of course. I mean, he's the play caller. I don't watch every Eagles games, but the Eagles games that I've watched this year, John, I don't understand some of Sirianni's play calling. You don't use the running backs. Now, I have read articles that some people actually put the blame on that on Hurts, because they run a lot of RPOs because they try to play to his strengths. And a lot of times Hurts has the decision whether or not to throw or run the football. And a lot of people are saying that he's electing to throw more than he should. So maybe not all of it goes on Sirianni. Maybe some of it's on Hurts. But what I'm going to tell you is this, John, and maybe I'll be proven wrong. If you guys continue to lose, and maybe you will, maybe you won't. I know you got 2 pretty winnable games coming up. But if the Eagles continue to lose and they're like 3-7, I see no reason. If I was an Eagles fan, you traded for the guy. Why would you not give Minshew Mania an opportunity to see if he could be a pretty solid quarterback for your football team? So that's my opinion. If Hurts continues to struggle, and I know he puts up good stats and people defend him in that way, but all you need is a set of eyes. The guy's not that good of a quarterback, at least in my opinion. And maybe he'll eventually end up proving me wrong. But I could see you guys moving quickly to Minshew this year and at least giving an opportunity before deciding if you're going to go with another quarterback in the draft. Taco Man, thank you very much. Hey, Chris. Would you trade our 2 first-round picks to trade up for Thibodeau? I think we need that guy. Leo getting triple team. He needs help. Yeah, that's a great point. Max just said that. I'm going to say no. And I'm curious to get your take on this, Max. But the way I look at it, man, with our 2 picks, I would sooner rather trade down because I don't look at it like we're one piece away from competing for a Super Bowl. Obviously, if you're enamored with Thibodeau, you take him. But I don't think I would trade up for him. If we have like the 3rd pick and he's there, you take him. But if I had the option either trade down or trade up, I would sooner trade down and get more draft capital for future drafts rather than trade up.
I'm going to agree with you. I'm not using 2 picks to go get 1 defensive edge player, especially with all the questions we already have on this offensive line. Never mind, how's Nick Gates going to come back? Never mind, are we losing Will Hernandez this offseason? I think, obviously, you're a Hog Molly's guy. You have to continue to look at the offensive line, especially in the first round if we're losing 2 guys, and who knows what even Matt Pear is because they're not putting him on the field unless they have to. But yeah, I agree, and the trading back idea is going to kind of play into my point of my hot topic that I'm going to bring up later in the stream.
I'm looking forward to getting to the hot topic. We tried a promo on that before we went live. Well, I'm going to get you back real quick. I'm going to have Riley on for about 10 or 15 minutes, then I'll bring all 3 of you guys back on, and we'll have kind of a little roundtable for about an hour. So I'll bring you right back on, Max, man. But
all right, appreciate it.
Looking forward to talking to you soon. Let me just read a couple of these, and we're going to bring Riley on. I got Taco. Jeremiah, big Eagles fan. I happen to think Gettleman is doing a fine job. Yeah, I'm sure you do, Jeremiah. I happen to think that Howie Roseman's doing a fine job, and I hope you guys keep him for the next 10 or 15 years. But what's going on, Jeremiah, man? Hopefully you're enjoying your Saturday night. Thanks for popping in. Jordan says, play up to the competition is a myth. The Saints should have spanked us, but Sean Payton made asinine decisions. Giants fan loves false optimism. I'm not giving you false optimism. I think the Giants are losing tomorrow. But I wouldn't be shocked if the Giants keep it a little bit closer than people think. Like I said, I'm not going to be shocked at all if we get blown out either, though. a lot of times when I see a spread that makes me question why do they have it that way, I'll notice that the team that you don't think that should be that close covered. So we'll see. Maybe they surprise tomorrow and they keep it a lot closer than you think. But I'm not picking the Giants by any stretch of the imagination. But I agree with you in that game. Sean Payton definitely made some questionable decisions. But to be fair, so did Joe Judge. Joe Judge elected not to go for it on 4th and 1 and instead elected to kick a field goal and threw for it on 3rd and 1 on a low percentage throw. So and I also questioned the 4th and 7 decision with only 9 minutes left not to go for it around midfield. It obviously worked out. They punted and the defense did the job, but I thought both coaches made very questionable decisions in that game. Zeke, Matt, thank you very much. Sorry about that. 185.5 rush yards allowed the past 2 games. That's what I thought you meant. By this defense. Have to tighten up in order to win Sunday. Where is Leo? Yeah, we were just talking about Leo, man. And listen, man, he ain't living up to that contract. There's no doubt about it. I think Max brought up a really good point. I think it has a lot to do with Dalvin Tomlinson because when Dalvin Tomlinson was there, Leo wasn't getting quite as much attention. Now that they don't have as talented of a guy on that line, opposite, Leonard Williams, you're seeing him get doubled and triple teamed, and he's not being able to make the same impact that he did last year. Which tells me that next year the New York Giants better make sure they improve that defensive line. Bob, man, all right, I'm caught up here. He says 9 losing seasons out of 10, worst record over the last 5 years. I was actually looking at this today. The New York Giants, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I'm going to do, I think they're 49-84 since 2013. From 2005 to 2012, I think they were 77-51. They're 49-84. And last night on Bad Dog Stream, I said that you can make an argument that the New York Giants have been the worst team in football since 2013, and people were saying I was crazy. Well, go and look at the numbers. People said the Detroit Lions have had 3 winning seasons since 2013. They've been to the playoffs. They've got 55 wins. They got 6 or 7 more wins than we do. The Jets had less. I looked at the Jets as well. I think they had 45 instead of 49. But, I mean, it's been horrible, man. And I think the Giants and the Jets have the fewest wins, if I'm not mistaken, dating back until 2017 or 18 or whatever it is. They're tied for the fewest wins in the NFL. So there has not been a worse team than the Giants. And if there has, you got to look really hard over the last 5, 6, 7 years in the NFL. I mean, when you pick 2nd, 4th, and 6th in 3 consecutive drafts, and you're starting 1-4 this year, they picked 11th last year. That's not, it's not a good track record. But thank you, Bob, man. I appreciate it, buddy. And let's see. Ron, man, thank you very much. With Cam Brown coming back, what about Ellerson Smith and Aaron Robinson? Maybe they could. Yeah, I want to see them out there. They can't come back yet because they're on the PUP list. So I think week 8. It's either week 7 or week 8. But I know this week they can't come back. But hopefully they get out there sooner than later, and we get an opportunity to see both of them. I would think Ellerson Smith will be used in as a situational pass rusher. And I also think Aaron Robinson is definitely getting an opportunity to play a lot of slot. And Bob, man, thank you. He says, even Peyton Manning ran bootleg rollouts. The issue is Jones tries to initiate contact when he runs. He'll end up in a stretcher if he doesn't stop. I agree with you. On the 1-yard line, though, to me, it's like I have to look at it on an individual basis in terms of the situations. On the one, the corner was cut off. I understand Jones trying to get in there, especially on 3rd down, to try to get that touchdown. But the problem I have with Jones is not on that one individual play. It's all over the field. The guy doesn't make the wisest of decisions when he's running the football. He doesn't look. I'm not going to go as far to say that I think he looks to create contact, but he definitely doesn't look to avoid it. And if you're a quarterback, you can't expect to have a long career if you're constantly taking unnecessary hits, Bob. So I'm with you on that. I'm completely with you on that, man. That's something he needs to get much better at. Obviously, otherwise he's not going to have a long career in the NFL. He's going to have a ton of concussions. He's going to have a ton of injuries, and he's not going to be able to stay on the football field for the New York Giants. And let me just make sure I didn't miss anybody, and then we're going to bring on Riley. Tuto, my man, all the way from Italy, tuning into the stream. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anybody before you, because sometimes these chats are out of sync. And I think I'm good. Yep. Tuto, man, thank you very much. I was a rookie when our entire team supported the New York Giants against the stinky Rams 17-10 at London Stadium. About 1,900 Italian Giants fans. That's awesome, man. I think that was 2017, if I'm not mistaken. But that's awesome, man. 2016, I think, when we made the playoffs. But thank you so much for all the support you always show on the channel, man. Tuto's the man. I can't wait to hopefully get to meet you one day at a Giant game, all the way from Italy. Always tuning into the stream, supporting the channel. Huge Giants fan. Glad to see you, my man. And let's pull on Riley. What's up, Riley?
Yo, what's up? Nothing going on. How you doing?
What's going on, my man? So I see you got the Saquon jersey.
Yes, I do. The same exact attire as last time when we beat the Saints. So I don't want to take this off now. Every time I get on here.
So what do you want to talk about, my man?
First off, my friend said that you're a GOAT, one of the best Giants content creators. He just wanted me to tell you that.
I appreciate it. I appreciate both you guys watching and supporting the channel.
Yeah. I want to talk about Leonard Williams for a minute. He indeed had 2 sacks in 5 games last year. So I'm not going to count him out right now. But, that's the one stat he has less because he has 1.5 now, and he had 2 last year in 5 games.
You know, here's the thing with Leonard Williams. I think once you get that contract, the fans are going to be much more aggressive with they expect immediate results. If you're getting paid Aaron Donald money or I think it's near Aaron Donald money, the fans are going to expect you to deliver on a consistent basis week in and week out. And I think that's the story with Leonard Williams. Last year, if you look at Leonard Williams' numbers for the season, he was incredible. He had 11.5 sacks. We're talking about a guy that played both on the inside and out. But on an individual basis, he compiled a lot of those sacks within one game, right? I think he had 3 against the Seahawks. Yeah, I think he had 2 or 3 maybe against the Cowboys. He kind of had it over a 5 or 6 game stretch. So I wouldn't be shocked if by year's end Leo has 7 or 8 sacks for this football team. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact, obviously, Dalvin Tomlinson's not there. I think that's kind of lending itself to the fact that he's not getting more pressure on a consistent basis, but also his contract. When you get paid that kind of money, I think the fan base, rightfully so, is going to expect high results.
Yeah, absolutely. But even Aaron Donald only has 3 sacks so far in the season.
Oh yeah, well, yeah. Aaron Donald, I don't know his numbers last year, but Aaron Donald didn't have a ton of sacks the year before, I don't think. But he's not as good as Aaron Donald. I think we could both agree on that.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Let's see here. Let's on the Kadarius Tony, absolute star. When we first drafted him, I definitely think people thought why would we need another wide receiver? We need offensive linemen. Well, you see now why we need another wide receiver because we don't have that much now.
Yeah, well, Kadarius, I mean, there's nothing I can complain about. Obviously, if you watch my channel, I know you watch my channel. I am a big proponent of going offensive line. I wanted to take Rashawn Slater. I still think I would have taken Rashawn Slater, but I cannot complain. And I like Tony. I say it all the time, man. I liked Tony before the draft. I was not upset when the Giants drafted Tony. But I wanted to take Slater. I thought he was one of the top 5 or 6 players in the draft, and it filled an area of need. But, seeing the way that Kadarius Tony is playing, there's no way in hell that I or anybody else could bash that trade down right now. I mean, obviously we still have bigger needs at probably, at least in my opinion, more important positions. But the fact that you were able to trade down and get a first-round pick and get a guy that you can make an argument the way he's looked over the first 2 weeks getting an opportunity may end up being the best rookie wide receiver in this draft class. I'm not going to go as far to say that. Obviously, there's incredibly talented wide receivers in this draft, but right now through 2 games, and granted, Tony did a lot of that when the game was kind of out of hand. Maybe the Cowboys were playing back. And like I said at the top of the stream, we'll see how Tony looks when he's getting, the primary corner, the top corner with Jalen Ramsey this week, and defenses pay more attention to him. But I do think he's definitely a very good player, and it absolutely looks like a steal for the Giants at 20th overall.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Since Dave Gettleman, the greatest GM alive, just fleeced the Bears like that.
Listen, man, if there's I would like nothing more than to come on here at the end of the year and say thank you, Dave Gettleman. Unfortunately, it's not trending that way.
Oh no, absolutely not.
Unfortunately, it's not trending that way. And obviously, I was rooting for Dave because I'm a Giants fan and I want what's best for this organization. And I think a lot of fans, I'm not saying that there's a lot of fans, but I do think there's some fans that are kind of celebrating that Gettleman's failed. It's like almost celebrating that your team failed. It's almost like celebrating that you're going to have to wait another 2 years for the team to be competitive. So I'm rooting for Dave, man. I want Dave to prove everybody wrong, but unfortunately, it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. But, hopefully it makes me look like a fool by year's end.
Yeah, and I don't blame you because, it obviously doesn't look good. And I actually have a score prediction for the the Rams game, if you'd like me to say that.
Yeah, let me hear it.
So I have also a scenario, if you'd like me to tell you. So the Giants, let's see here, score a touchdown, okay? So it's, let's see here, 22-24, because they scored a 2-point conversion to bring it to a 2-point game. The Rams come on offense. We somehow stop the Rams on offense. We get it with 0 timeouts left, about a minute 30 to go. All right. So this is where Daniel Jones and Kadarius Tony both come up clutch here. They drive down the field, and let's see here. Gano scores a 53 game-winning field goal. Giants win 25-24.
I pray to God you're right, Riley. And I hope I could go back to the stream and show that, and you hit the score right on the head. I'm not picking us, but I hope that you're right and I'm wrong. I do think Daniel Jones could have a pretty good day, but we'll see. We'll see how the offense plays. We'll see if we can establish the run, and obviously, I think our toughest opponent so far to date. So we'll see how we're able to perform this week. I know a lot of Giants fans are down on them right now, rightfully so. And this was a game going into the year that I didn't think we were going to win. So there's no way in hell I'm picking them now, based off the fact that we're 1-4 and we have a lot of injuries. But you never know, man. It's the NFL. It's what makes the sport so fun. It's completely unpredictable in week to week. You could change your entire opinion about a football team off of 1 week. We saw it week 4 when the New York Giants took down the Saints. There were definitely some Giants fans that may not necessarily have been fully bought in, but they were at least more open to the fact of saying, okay, let's see if they can build off this. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of Giants fans that feel the same way if we could somehow beat the Rams tomorrow, but that's a very tall task. I'm going to give you another very depressing stat about the Giants. I was looking into a lot of things. I didn't post it on Twitter because I was like, there's going to be way too many people that are bummed out when they read this stat. I looked at the New York Giants since 2018. New York Giants since 2018 have won 16 games. Of those 16 games, if you take away the Washington football team and you take away backup quarterbacks, the New York Giants only have 5 wins.
Oh.
Of those 5 wins, 3 of them are against Jameis Winston.
Oh, my God.
The only 2 starting quarterbacks that they have beaten over the last 3 years that are not on the Washington football team and are not named Jameis Winston are Russell Wilson and Carson Wentz when he was the worst quarterback in the league last year. Those are the only 2 starting quarterbacks that they beat not named Jameis Winston since 2018.
Lord have mercy.
So now you're asking them to beat Matt Stafford tomorrow. I hope you're right, and I hope the New York Giants make me look like an absolute fool. But that is an accurate stat. I had to triple check it to make sure that I was right. They have only beaten 5 starting quarterbacks, and 3 times it was Jameis Winston. So, yeah. So has not been. Brandon out. I guess. Well, Brandon out was he technically? I guess I don't really consider him a starter, but
I don't.
Yeah,
I don't consider him.
I don't really consider him. There's some guys that I guess you could say at the time, but I don't really consider him a starter. The definitive starters. There's only been 5 times.
We basically just beat Russell Wilson because I don't even count Carson Wentz as a starting QB. That's how bad he is.
Yeah. So it's been tough times to be a New York Giant fan since 2018. Andy Dalton's not a starter. The only reason he was playing last year, I think, is because Dak Prescott got hurt. So I don't consider Andy Dalton a starter. He's a backup. He was a backup going into the year. Dak Prescott was the starter. He became the starter when Prescott got hurt. So that doesn't count. But Riley, I actually got Chris North. I'm gonna pull him on,
All right.
and then I'll pull everybody on, and we'll have kind of a roundtable. Andy Dalton's not a starter, guys. How is he a starter? Dak Prescott was the starter on that football team. I'm gonna pull you off, and I'm gonna get to a couple of these super chats. And then I'm gonna pull Sonor on. And Nick DeWick, man, thank you very much. Praying Thomas plays tomorrow. I think we're both praying that Andrew Thomas plays tomorrow. And Nick, man, thank you so much for being a member of the channel, man. Always appreciate all the support. And yeah, man, you're the man, dude. Thank you so much for being here. But yeah, without him in the lineup, man, it's gonna be tough, for the New York Giants to get a W. We saw what the offensive line looked like last week when he was not in the lineup. So, but I didn't post that on Twitter because I was like, oh man, that's really gonna bum out Giants fans. But I probably shouldn't have said it tonight either. But I had to get it off my chest. JTB, man, thank you very much. Hey, Dana, what do you think we should draft next year if we have 2 top 10 picks? Think an edge out of Oregon or maybe the O-line Evan Neal, Alabama, possibly. Listen, man, I don't know who's going to be there, so it's very hard for me to say. I don't know who's going to be there when we're picking next year. I don't know how these players are going to look throughout the rest of the season in college football, but I'm going to continue to say it. If we're not going quarterback, which I don't think we should, I don't think there's a quarterback in this draft that pops off the page for me. And I think Daniel Jones should get another year with the New York Giants based off of that and based off the fact that I think he can grow and progress as a quarterback. The only 2 positions I'm looking at right now as a Giants fan, if I was the general manager, is edge and offensive line. Period. End of story. And I'm going to give you guys another hot take, and it was something I was thinking about today. And I'm going to do a video at the end of the year like I always do when I kind of put my GM cap on and I do the Gettleman Project, which will probably be called something else next year. And maybe there's a bit of a hot take, and maybe not a lot of fans agree with this, but I personally think it's forward thinking. And it's only based on the assumption that he stays healthy. He's got to come back healthy, and he's got to play the rest of the year. And he's questionable going into this game. If Andrew Thomas plays good throughout the rest of the year and proves that he's healthy, I would look at Andrew Thomas as a long-term piece. And I look at what the Dallas Cowboys did with Tyron Smith after his second year. They signed him to like a 7-year extension, and they got him for well under market value by the time that he would have hit free agency 4 or 5 years into his career. If Andrew Thomas proves that he could stay healthy this year and play at a high level throughout the remainder of the season, and that's a big if because he's had a foot issue now each of the first 2 years. But if he plays 10, 11 games here and straight and plays great, I would strongly consider giving him an extension because kind of like what the Eagles did with their offensive line, you get him for, say, a top 10 tackle in this year's market, but 3-4 years from now, he's not getting paid anywhere near what his market value should be if he continues to progress as a football player, and it's a long-term position. That's something, if I was a general manager, if he stays healthy and continues to play well, that I would consider at year's end. Tudo, Matt, thank you very much. We have several retired U.S. Navy SEALs instructors on our athletic program, and they have been the major key to our success and championships. That's awesome, man. That's awesome, man. USA, got respect for USA over in Italy, man. Thank you so much for being here, Tudo. John says, I think we are definitely picking top 5, and the Bears will be picking around top 15. I would go Neal with the first pick, and then Tyler Lindenbaum. So you're going with a tackle and a center, man. Linderbaum's a beast out of Iowa. He's probably the best player on that team. How often do you say that a top 5 team in the nation's best player is a center? Rolly, man, thank you very much. I leased a car to 2 surgeons today who said their daughter's friend is dating Jones. I told them to tell him I ain't sold on him being a franchise quarterback. Rolly don't care. He's going to tell you how it is regardless, man. He's going to tell you how it is regardless, but I'm not sold on him yet either, but I do think he's got the talent to be a good quarterback in the NFL, but he's got a lot more to prove before I'm willing to say that he's a franchise quarterback. But that's just my opinion on Andrew Thomas. I'm curious to see what you guys think about that. Based off the fact, like, let's just assume Thomas stays healthy for the next 10 or 11 games. Take into account that the salary cap goes up every single year. Take into account that you have to figure that Andrew Thomas is going to be a long-term piece for this football team, a left tackle that you're going to want to keep here long-term. If Andrew Thomas stays healthy, do you consider giving him a long-term extension that in the end is going to pay off for you if he remains healthy and continues to play at a high level, because he's not going to be getting paid near the market value 2, 3, 4 years from now if it's a 6 or 7 year extension? It's something I would consider. It's not like you're talking about a running back. You're talking about a left tackle, a guy that you want to be here for the next 10 to 15 years. That's something I would consider if he stays healthy the whole year and he plays at a high level. That's just my line of thinking, because I sometimes try to be forward thinking and thinking what could help this team long term, and that would essentially free up a lot of salary cap space when you think that this team could eventually hopefully be a competitive football team. But I think it would be a good idea. Let's bring on Sinor into the chat. Chris Sinor has been a longtime subscriber. A longtime subscriber of the channel. He's a big Chargers fan, but he asked me if he'd come on today. And always love talking to Sinor. What's going on, my man? Sinor? You're breaking up, buddy.
Can you hear me up? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I had it muted. Yeah, what's going on, Chris?
Wow, man, your voice is so much different. But what's up, buddy?
I'm doing fine. Getting through the season, just another NFL season.
Yeah, you're a lot happier than we are right now, the way the Chargers have been playing so far this year.
I'm happy, but I'm also worried. There's a lot of things you got to take in consideration. But if I'm a Giants fan, I'm pretty worried, especially with the direction that, well, you were supposed to be contending this year based off the performances of your defense and your bright spots in the offense. So if I had to choose, I'd be concerned to be a Giants fan right now, because this was supposed to be your win now year. Well, not win now, but it's supposed to be. Last year was supposed to be the foundation. This is where you start building up to, your big house, your big, playoff contention team, but it looks like you're kind of getting set back.
Well, of course. I mean, going into this year, I didn't even label it playoffs or bust, but I labeled it improvement or bust, like significant improvement or bust, like at least an 8 or 9 win team. And if you don't get that, and maybe they'll still get that, I'm not going to completely write that off yet. But if they don't win at least 8 or 9 games this year, you have to have serious concerns about, the development of this rebuild. I mean, it's year 3 now. I'll be fair and say year 3. They should have started in 2018. They didn't. It's year 3 of the rebuild. You tried to accelerate the process this year when you went out there and you spent a ton of money in free agency to try to get this team to be, to take a step up off a 6-win season last year. And, so far to date this year, they haven't been near, what we expected. And obviously lost to the Falcons and everything else.
I think, and I think you'd agree here. I think you guys are sort of in the same spot as Washington, because last year Washington actually, they were, not rebuilding, but they were sort of that mediocre, they made the playoffs, but again, in consideration with the division that you play in, of course they're gonna one of the teams gonna make the playoffs. But if you look at the way that the team was structured, they were structured as a defensive team, so similar to you guys. You guys were, and Jones, to be fair, struggled, and he struggled for multiple reasons, being himself and the team. But you guys were a defensive team. I mean, last year your defense was outperforming what they were supposed to be in the beginning of the season. I think Washington kind of went the same way, and now the biggest struggle on Washington and you guys is now the defense, which was supposed to be the bright spot, and their offense is not the best. I mean, Heineke's getting through, but their offense is way better than their defense, and I think it's the same picture here. If you guys had a run game, I will say that this offense, kicks it up to 11, and it becomes a way better offense. I mean, Saquon is a good running back, but again, he's coming off a torn ACL, came off a high
can't
ankle
block
sprain.
either. I mean, we haven't been able to run block all year. So
I mean, you lost Nick Gates. I mean, there's going to be excuses there.
there's no
injuries are big
excuses.
excuses.
The team
disagree.
The team hasn't been able to block, but
the thing is that you're missing Nick Gates, and I think though Nick Gates,
we're missing Shane Lemieux. He got hurt before the year started. They were both projected starters, but it is what it is, man. You got to do a much better job than what they have in terms of run blocking this year. Last year we were actually pretty good in that area, and this year the pass protection's been improved. But in terms of your point about Washington, I agree. I think there's some differences. Obviously, they haven't drafted their quarterback yet. We have a guy that we're hoping could be a franchise quarterback. You figure next year Washington's going to go out there and draft their quarterback. So Washington, in a way, is kind of like half rebuild, half trying to compete now because they kind of had a journeyman quarterback with Fitzpatrick because they weren't really in a place to draft a quarterback. But I think we are in a similar situation in the sense that both of our defenses, even more so them, have incredibly underperformed this year. And both of us, at least it looks as of now, will be picking top 10. So both of us definitely. I thought going into the year, both of us would be 8, 9 win teams, and that has not been the case.
I think one thing here, and I'll bring in a little bit of statistical, analysis. One thing with rushing, and I think this sort of goes to Garrett's sort of benefit, is that you guys have adjusted, and I'll post citations in the chat. The rushing yardage when it comes to the entire line, you guys have rushed the left end, so that'd be the outside of the left tackle 84 times on second down, and you've rushed the left guard, which is I believe Will Hernandez. It's 21 times on second down. Most of your runs come on second down, which is a good adjustment because now your entire right side is with Soldier, Billy Price. I don't know who your center is.
Billy Price at the center. They got Skura.
So you guys made the adjustment to run on the left side, but I don't know how many times that's on Saquon or if it's on Booker or whoever else you have on your running back.
He got hurt last week. They used Booker mainly, but obviously that's the strength of this offensive line. That's where they need to run. But hasn't worked. You look at our rushing stats, and I'll pull them up right now. I got them right here. On the year, the New York Giants are what are they? They're 24th in yardage in terms of on the ground, and they're only averaging 4 yards a carry. That's 21st in the league. So the rushing stats have been horrible this year. And our run defense has really been what's discouraging. We've given up almost 700 yards on the ground. So, and I think a lot of that goes back to the offensive line, man. If you can't get a push, you're not going to be able to establish your ground game. So that has been the most underwhelming part of this team this year. I thought the ground game would be pretty good because, last year, the last 8 games, the New York Giants ran the ball pretty effectively. But obviously there's been changes to the offensive line and everything else. And I would guess out of our 479 yards, how many are from Daniel Jones? I mean, Daniel Jones has almost 200. He's got 197 yards rushing. So
He led your team rushing, I believe, against Washington. I think
he's like, for
your
the year,
rushing
he
leader.
leads our team in rushing.
Yeah, and that's
So-
bad too, especially with the injury that he's coming off. You don't want him to rush. I mean, if Daniel Jones by week 16, 15 is leading your entire team in rushing, that means A, Saquon's out probably, and he's probably not doing. Even if he's out, he's probably not doing anything because of the offensive line. And B, you say Daniel Jones is just going to be on a high injury, risk because you don't want your quarterback to lead your team in rushing in whatever era, unless you're Lamar Jackson. And I think this is where we agreed upon this last year, was that Lamar's going to come out with an injury eventually sooner or later, but surprisingly he hasn't. So unless you're Lamar Jackson or you're a very capable quarterback athletically, which Daniel Jones isn't, he's a good athlete, but he's not Lamar Jackson level type athlete. You shouldn't be leading your team in rushing. And
No.
Lamar has the excuse. Baltimore has the excuse that who's their starting running back? Tyson Williams, good running back, but that's not gonna be somebody that's gonna push you through.
No, I don't think. I think Jones needs to sprinkle in the run game. I do think that that's a weapon of his, but he clearly can't do it nearly in terms of the amount of frequency as a guy like Lamar Jackson. You don't want Jones to have more than 400 yards rushing, maybe 500 yards rushing tops for the year. And he's trending way above that right now. Well, I guess it's kind of come back a little bit over the last week, but yeah, I agree with you. You don't want to run him nearly as frequently because you look at the 3 injuries Jones has had. It's all come running the football. It came against the Packers,
hamstring,
concussion, and it came this week. So,
well, I think and I'm sorry for cutting you off.
No, go ahead.
I think the biggest threat here for Daniel Jones is the threat of him having the capacity to run the ball. So if defenses can honor him being able to run the ball, which he doesn't have to, just him having the threat to be able to do that, that now puts defenses in check. You have linebackers now being wasted as spies in order to contain his run. There's multiple things that Daniel Jones can do. And I just listed the threat of running that, he doesn't have to physically do, that he's capable of doing, and defenses have to honor. That's what they do with Lamar Jackson. And Lamar Jackson, everybody knows, he can run. So that's why defenses, they play a spy as their Mike linebacker. They do specific things to try to keep him in check, which of course don't work. But with Jones, he can have defenses, on their toes and everything, and think that he can run. They run the boot, and he thinks he's going to run out. He checks it down to a wide open receiver. There's a lot of things that Jones can do, and I think that's what Garrett has to eventually start to do, is be able to have Jones adjust from being a running quarterback. And I'm not saying that Jones is a running quarterback, but Jones literally running the ball rather than playing mind games with the defense. I think that's something that Garrett should be able to do, and I think he will do. I think Garrett is a good offensive coordinator, but I think he's been limited a lot in his career in New York, basically because of the
don't tell
offensive
Giants
line.
fans that.
Yeah, I think they have. I mean, there's a reason to be pissed. I'm pissed at our OC. I mean, and when we're a pretty good offense right now, but I think he's been limited by an offensive line. I think that's what a lot of people don't understand. You can't open up a playbook when your offensive line is that bad. You're limited to a certain amount of plays.
I agree. I definitely agree with that. So I'm going to read this, and then I'm going to bring everybody on. I guess we'll have a little bit of a roundtable discussion. We'll feed off the chat. And I know Max said he had a hot take that I'm very excited to hear about. Tudo, man, thank you very much. If American New York Giants fan base were as half as faithful and strong as Knicks fans, New York Giants would have been a much better place by Zano. Listen, man, I'm not, I say it all the time, man. I think Knicks fans are incredible. Giants fans are incredible too. But Knicks fans have been through the ringer, and they're as loyal as anybody. But Giants fans, we've been through the ringer the last 5 years, and this team continues to watch their team and, I guess support their team. Obviously, negatively, but a lot of them, but rightfully so. But I think New York Giants fans care as much as anybody.
Faithful and strong is something that you definitely used to describe Giant fans. I mean, look at you, Chris. You're 1-5, and you're still doing live streams. If my team was 1-5, and I had to do live streams, I would quit. I'd say I'm out. I'm not doing this.
But Knicks fans are top notch. I say that all the time. I give them credit all the time. But what's going on, guys? Glad to see Elvis back in here. Glad to get Ryan back in here. Max back in here. Thank you guys for waiting. And yeah, figured we'd chop it up for another 45 minutes, hour or so, whatever it may be. But first thing first, Max told me he was, saving something that he wanted to talk about with the group. So let me hear what you got.
Yeah, so I kind of want to do it in this setting so each of you can give your thoughts, and especially the chat, because I'm about to say something that the Giants fan base doesn't want to hear. But I'm also going to take you on my thought process as I do it, and you kind of alluded to it a bit earlier, Chris, when you had the first guest on here, and saying how we're already over the expected cap for next year, right? Yes, we have some draft capital. Since Joe Judge has been here, they both, Joe Judge and Dave Gettleman, have said the players that they have acquired have been a collaborative effort. So, in that essence, is it fair to say that although Dave Gettleman has been here 4 years, this team that we have now can only be held to a 2-year standard? Because it's being built for Joe Judge.
Not entirely, because obviously Barkley was here before Judge. Jones was here before Judge. But the majority of the moves, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
the majority of the guys they've brought in over the last 2 years. I say it all the time. I said it before the year started. I said, John, I thought Giants fans were pumping Judge up way too much, and they were giving him this Superman complex. And every time you would go on Twitter, anytime something good would happen, Giants fans would give the credit to Joe Judge, and anytime something bad would happen, it would be Gettleman. It wouldn't just be the fans; it would be the beat writers. Dan Duggan, I remember he made a tweet when he said, I think when we traded Ryan Santoso and got the complimentary 7th-round pick, he said Joe Judge got a steal here by doing that. He was able to use his brain. And then there was another move where he bashed Gettleman for doing it. You can't have it both ways. So I always agreed that Joe Judge and Dave Gettleman were working collaboratively. And for the last 2 years, in terms of the roster building, there's no doubt about it. Joe Judge has had his fingers all over this roster in terms of the way that he's built it. I'm not going to say I think Gettleman's more responsible, obviously, for the roster, because a lot of the guys that are here were here before Joe Judge, but anybody that's been here since, I absolutely think. And the other thing I'll say is this: Logan Ryan, which is the one move, and I don't know if Authentic's still in here. I know he loves Logan Ryan, and I'm not trying to bash Logan Ryan. I'm just saying, as a, if I was the GM, I would have put that money somewhere else. Logan Ryan, to me, was completely a Joe Judge decision in terms of extending him the second time. That is Joe Judge written all over it with the Patriots ties and everything else. I think that's why he came here to begin with. So I think a lot of the personnel decisions have been driven by Joe Judge, and obviously Gettleman as well. The GM's always going to be the guy that gets the credit, should get the credit and the blame, even though a lot of fans are trying to give Judge the credit for every little thing that they thought was right. But I would say Gettleman's more responsible just because Judge wasn't here since the beginning. But since 2020, I think it's been collaborative.
And to just kind of wrap up the thought, because I see people sending super chats here, but basically, you as a Giants content creator, for the first couple of years of the rebuild, were in defense of Dave Gettleman saying, hey, this is going to take time, right? And what kind of a situation did Dave Gettleman come into as a GM? He came into a situation where we as fans believe he was forced into having
I don't mean to interrupt you, Max. I want to let you keep talking. People in the chat are saying somebody needs to mute their mic. I don't know who it is, but I guess there's like a large echo.
Yeah, you have to mute your this. If you're watching it on another device, you have to mute the other device, and it's going to cause an echo.
Yeah, I don't know who it is. Somebody's mic is causing an issue. But go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
But yeah, it's going to take time. But what kind of a situation did Dave Gettleman come into, right? He came into a situation where we as fans believe he was forced to move forward with Eli Manning and try to win. He came into a terrible cap situation with a team that wasn't his, right? So for all the fans that are calling for Dave Gettleman's job after this year, you're asking the next GM to do the same thing, because right now you're pretty much forcing Daniel Jones on that GM for at least 1 year, right? And the cap situation is not in a good place for a GM to come in here and start to build his own team next year. So my opinion, right, we've also said firing coaches after 2 years, every 2 years, is not the answer. Regardless of how happy or unhappy we as fans of the New York Giants team has performed this year, I think it is pivotal that we go one more year with both Dave Gettleman and Joe Judge, and not only because of that, but next year, right, Daniel Jones is on his 4th year of his rookie deal. So that means his deal will be expiring at the end of next year.
I'm going to tell you
Saquon Barkley.
I'm going to tell you this before you keep going, and I see where you're going with this. You were absolutely right before you said the chat is going to go ballistic.
Yep.
But go ahead, keep going.
Yep. Saquon Barkley will be off of his 5th-year option. All of the players we just signed this offseason, such as Logan Ryan, Leonard Williams, Kenny Golladay, their cap hits will be much, much smaller. And if the next GM doesn't want them, they will be much more tradable. And that will allow this new GM to come in and make the roster his, which is going back to your point, why I said maybe trading down in one of our first picks this year isn't a bad idea again, because now you're also giving that GM better cap space, giving him flexibility to choose his quarterback, whether he wants to extend DJ or get a different one. Now you're also giving him the draft capital that we might have this year moving into next.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
You guys.
Uh-oh, I think
Yeah,
Chris
he's
is frozen and lagging
yeah.
here.
It was his audio is glitching.
Yeah, and his video is just stuck there.
Oh no.
He's gonna get kicked off the stream, I think. Oh no,
Oh.
because normally they boot
Oh,
they boot the live as well.
Is this?
But I knew as soon as I said this, Giants fans were not going to be happy. But I
Well,
think in the best
it's-
interest of the team moving forward, you have to give your coach a third year, because what coach is going to want to come here after 3 consecutive coaches have been fired after 2 seasons? What GM is going to want to come here to be force-fed a quarterback with a bad cap situation, not have room to make the roster his? You
Well,
want to go one more year to give the GM and the new coach, if it doesn't work out next year, the flexibility to make this team theirs, instead of forcing the roster that we've paid for onto the next regime that you choose.
The problem that you have there is that you're limiting your GM, I guess, window for whoever you want to choose, because now you're forcing them to stay with Joe Judge. And so that's going to be limiting your amount of prospects that you have around the GM market, because now you're going to have to
Right, and that's why I'm saying
specifically
stick with both of them for this year, and if it doesn't work out, you fire both of them the following year.
Well, I think the problem with that is that you're going to eventually start to see a pattern where it's going to the entire, like, not regime, but the entire organization. I don't think people are going to give it enough credibility if it's going to be their 6th, 7th season of losing. I don't think it's going to be a very valuable spot. I think what New York has to do right now is that they have to be financially smart, and they have to start getting rid of a lot of contracts. And of course, it's going to.
I agree with you.
But
I agree with you, but
think-
like I said, the problem there is a lot of these contracts that are taking up the cap space are ones that we just signed this past offseason. So getting rid of them next year, especially with the way we loaded them, it's going to be more cost effective for them to be on the team than if they're not.
You're
Yeah,
gonna have an all-in GM just like this year. He went all in this year. So what makes you think he's going to trade back in the draft? He's going to take his 2 draft picks, move up. He's going to be all in. We're not going to have draft capital because he's going to be all in, because it's good. He's going to know it's win or get fired.
Then I don't
and-
think you have
right,
a
and
GM.
and even in that case scenario, right? Say he doesn't. I don't think he's going to use 2 to trade up. I think he'll probably stand pat with both and pick 2 players with where our roster is at, because like Chris said earlier, we're not like just 1 player away from winning. So he's going to try to get as many picks as he can early. But either way, if the team isn't good after that, then we're going to have a high pick for the next GM to come in and make his own decisions.
True.
And we're going to have
True.
the cap space flexibility after the second year of these contracts that we just gave 3 and 4 years deals to. I'm not saying that this is what they must do. What I'm saying is, as bad as this team is performing, I think in the long term, it is better in the interest of the New York Giants organization to at least show they're willing to stick with a coach and a GM to make the job more attractive and not force a team that was built by Dave Gettleman and Joe Judge on any new GM that you might want to interview for the next one if it doesn't work out.
I agree with you there. I mean, we can't keep on changing coaches like we change our underwears. We got to give them more than 2 years.
I wonder what Judge's relationship is realistically with Dave Gettleman, because I think if they keep losing, I think there might be tension, because obviously on a losing team, you're going to see a lot of tension within the organization. But I think we've seen Gettleman, pull off Super Bowl caliber teams before. Of course, the Carolina, that's probably his only example. But the thing is that it's we talked about credibility. I think the Giants are already losing credibility without even losing, because I mean there's a lot of things that Gettleman said. Of course, you bring up the Odell Beckham situation, but him and Chris has brought this up multiple times. I believe other channels have as well. But when he talked about the hog mollies, he wanted to get his offensive lineman, and he wanted to change the offensive line. He wanted to get better. He didn't. He brought in Andrew Thomas. He's a good tackle. Has been a disappointing rookie season, but he's done subtle changes. But the offensive line is not good. So I think not even just losing. I think just what they talk about, especially Judge. Judge is right now. He's a fraud in my opinion. Just what they talk about, I think with linguistics, they're already losing credibility. So it's not even just losing. I think it's just what they say. It's already, in my opinion, I think they've lost credibility. But again,
I mean,
this is this organization. This is this
In
regime.
4 years, he's only used a first-round pick and a second-round pick, because Commanders was a second-round pick. But other than that, everyone else, I'm not going to count Hurt.
Sorry about that, guys.
It's technically a fourth-round pick. Everyone else has been fourth or later.
Yeah.
He has not.
First off,
addressed-
I want to say thank you guys for keeping the stream moving. My internet dropped out.
No worries.
show
How
must
much of
go
that did
on.
you catch, Chris? How much of that did you catch? My whole thought
all right.
process
I
and
don't
my
I don't
point.
want you to have to do it all over again, because we
Right.
were kind of cutting in and out. But from what I heard, let me just read a couple of these people, Chris. I might have missed one
Go
because my
ahead.
internet cut that. I apologize. Bryce says, hi, cutie. Hi, Bryce. That was up there the whole time, by the way. Bryce, man, thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. And I'll read Tudo's real quick, and then I'm going to tell you what I heard. Tudo says, in my experience, all the mistakes and bad penalties are a result of poor teaching and not covering all the topics of games of knowledge. Yeah, I mean, what I will say, and I hear the echo again, by the way. I don't know who it is. It may be me. I don't know. I don't think so. But as far as the, yeah, I mean, when it comes down to mental mistakes and mental errors and poor tackling, that definitely goes more so on coaching than anything else. But as far as what you had to say, from what I heard, basically what you were saying is you're for continuity next year. You want to bring Dave Gettleman back, due to the fact that you don't want to go through another coach. They've gone through now. They've fired a coach every 2 years now. This would be our fifth head coach since 2015. If we move on from Joe Judge and bring another guy in, and you feel like if they bring in an outsider, it's going to lend itself to that, and you're just going to have a constant recycling of and for the most part, I agree with a lot of what you had to say. I think that's a disaster, and that's what the worst organizations do. As a matter of fact, on Twitter today, I posted, if the New York Giants do fire Joe Judge this year, which obviously I think we both recognize as a possibility, the New York Giants will have gone through 5 coaches since 2015. The Pittsburgh Steelers have gone through 3 coaches since 1969. And, so, I mean, it's just a disaster, right? So that is not what the best organizations do. The best organizations have continuity, and they find a way to instill a system, and they give their coaches an opportunity to get things right. As much as a lot of fans may hate Pat Sherman, I was completely behind firing him based off a lot of the things that came out that year. Was it the best idea to move on after 2 years after you just fired Ben McAdoo? I think it's at least debatable. Jones may have had a lot more, much better second year had he came back in the same scheme, everything else. Obviously, a lot of Giants fans that hated Sherman are still going to say it was the right idea to fire him. But if you keep flipping head coaches, it's not going to be the most desirable location for a new head coach to come over here and want to coach the football team, because they're going to look at past results and how the New York Giants moved on from coaches as quickly as they did. And they're going to be like, well, did they really ever give Pat Shermer a true chance? Did they really ever give Joe Judge a true chance? Is this really the job that I want to sign up for? So I think a lot of what you said in general, I agree with. Now, what I'm going to say is this: there is no way in hell, at least in my opinion. And I listen, man, I understand where you're coming from, but the amount of money the New York Giants spent this offseason and the correct raised expectations by the fan base going into this year. I'm not saying that you should have expected 10 or 11 wins, but you expected a better product. If this team comes out this year and they lay an egg, I don't see how there is any way, shape, or form that John Mara is not going to make a change at the GM spot. Now, what I will say, to your point, and it's kind of what I said at the top of the stream, Gettleman to me is going to be the pound of flesh. Gettleman is absolutely going to be the pound of flesh this year if the New York Giants win 5 or 6 games. But what I can see the New York Giants doing, if they want to push forward with continuity and they don't want to break this whole thing up, and they want Daniel Jones to be the quarterback next year, and they want Joe Judge to get another year so they're not breaking it up. And I'm not saying this is going to be a long-term answer or this is going to be a 5-year plan. This is more so going to be a makeshift GM to give Judge and Jones that one more year to prove whether or not they're going down the right path before they decide if they want to completely blow this thing up. What I could see them doing is hiring somebody from within the organization for a year, kind of like an experiment to see if they could keep this team on the right path. But I just can't see any scenario if the New York Giants win 5 or 6 games where Dave Gettleman stays on as the general manager.
Right, and I wouldn't be so against that either. And for me, I think it's less about continuity with the current regime as much as it is giving the next regime, if there has to be one, more roster flexibility when they take over.
Yeah, and here's what I'm going to say, man. If and I'm not against either way. If they go either way, I'll understand it at least. If they hire from within for 1 year and they try to push forward John Jones for 1 more year, and I would be behind bringing in an outside mind because it has not been working. But if they're going to go that route, if they are going to bring in, name a guy, I don't know, but somebody from another organization that has no ties to Mara, no ties to the New York Giants, you cannot strap that guy. You can't put handcuffs on and say,
right,
you have to do this if you want the job. You can't say to that guy, if you take this job, Joe Judge has to be your coach. Daniel Jones has to be your quarterback. You can't do it, which is why I think if they're going to push forward with Judge for 1 more year, that I think is the course of action that they're going to take. I think they will hire from within. If they bring in a guy from the outside, you can't. It's what they did with Gettleman, like you kind of said. At least we assume that. When Gettleman took the job, I think it was a common understanding between Mara and Gettleman that they were going to try to build and give Eli Manning another year and try to compete and rebuild at the same time, which was the stupidest idea of all time. You can't do two things at once, but that's at least my line of thinking. We'll never know. Mara, of course, is never going to admit that, but you can't do that. You can't strap your GM. So you have to, if you're going to go that route, you got to go all in. You got to give him free reign. You got to let him decide what he wants to do with this roster. But if I had to guess, based on the high contracts on this roster, based on the fact that I don't think you could completely do a rebuild at the end of the year, if I was leaning one way or the other right now, I would be leaning that they will have an in-house GM by year's end for 1 more year and see if they could push forward with what they've got. But that's just my guess.
Yeah, and that's what I think makes the most sense, and that's just my point all along. But as I knew when I started the conversation, I told you before we came on here that I thought and knew that it was going to cause a lot of controversy because it's not a popular opinion amongst Giants fans, especially right now.
But I think you have validity behind your opinion. Not Gettleman, I just can't see. But in terms of trying to push forward and not completely blow it all up and fire another coach after 2 years, because that's what you're doing if you bring in a new GM. I mean, you're just asking for a situation that nobody's ever going to want to come here and do. So I do think I understand people who disagree with your opinion, but I also understand your opinion.
Right.
It's a tricky situation. But I'm curious to get some of your guys' takes on that.
Well, I think one thing that I was saying is that if you're going to keep Judge another year, and if any reason, it doesn't really matter. If Gettleman's off the team, you're already limiting your prospects of getting a general manager because, of course, Joe Judge being on the team. So now you're going to have a GM have to conform into, having Joe Judge as their head coach, which, I mean, it makes sense to hire somebody internally, but if that's going to be your bridge GM for 1 year, I mean, I think
my line of thinking is this, Chris. This is my line of thinking. If they went that route, and I'm still getting backfeed, I don't know who it is. If they go that route, my line of thinking is if it works out, Judge kind of gets more control within the organization if the team is starting to improve, and maybe he gets to have a little bit of a hands-on approach in terms of what GM he wants to bring in. If it works out. If it doesn't work out, you completely blow it up.
Has to win to do that.
Yeah, of course.
Has to win.
And if they win 3 games, I don't even think this is an option. I think they blow it up. And it's kind of really hard to talk about this until we know what happens throughout the rest of this season. It's we're still only 5 games in. We got 12 games to go, but it's definitely going to be a hot topic of conversation throughout the rest of the year. But I can see both sides of it. I think it's an interesting discussion. Elvis, what about you? You're a Giant fan, and what's your take?
I mean, you got to give the coach time. I don't know about the GM. I think Gettleman's going to be gone.
But I think you agree with me, Elvis. If you want to keep Judge, the only way to really ensure that, unless you're handcuffing the new GM, is to hire from within for a year.
Yeah, you got to hire from within if you're going to keep Judge. Now, having said that, Parcells in year 3 almost got fired. The Wellington Mara almost fired Bill Parcells in year 3, and look how he turned out. Now, I'm not saying Judge is Bill Parcells, but you need to give a coach more than 2 years. He's got to establish a culture. He's got to bring in his own players, and he's got to put his game plan in front of his own players. You're not doing that in 2 years. So you're either going to keep the whole regime, including Gettleman, if you don't want to keep Gettleman, which I don't think they should, promote Kevin Abrams to GM, keep them together for one more year. Let's see what happens. Because, again, I personally think the Giants are not as bad as their record says. They should have won 2 games already. They should have beat Washington. They should have beat Atlanta. They're not as bad as the 1-4 record. And they have injury after injury on a bad offensive line to begin with. They were okay at best. They're terrible right now. You bring every offensive lineman back healthy. You draft O-line in the draft next year. This is a totally different team.
Well, I'm going to briefly say, you can make the argument for injuries, and I think injuries is an excuse that you can make. But again, I think it also speaks to the lack of depth that the Giants have at certain positions.
I think that's part of it. I think that's fair, Chris. I think that's part of it.
O-line should have been. I thought O-line should have been drafted a lot more heavier this previous draft. I think
Elvis agrees with that.
I think there's it sort of speaks to, and I'm not saying that your opinion's wrong. I think you have a valid opinion, but I think it also speaks to how unprepared Joe Judge was in things like depth and having players behind your, and you could say for like the wide receiver position, you had Tony, but again, there's I don't really see that much depth in this Giants team, and I think it sort of speaks to your record.
I think we have depth, but I think we have depth at the wrong places. Like I don't think we have depth at the most important area. That being the offensive line, that being the defensive line. So
you got a backup kicker.
Yeah, well, I think like at the wide receiver position, I think we have good depth.
Yeah.
You talk about like John Ross is your 5th wide receiver going into the year. But on the offensive line, I completely agree. We had no depth going into the year. It's why we were rushing before the year started to pick up as many depth offensive linemen as we could possibly get. So I'm gonna agree. I didn't agree with a lot of the decisions that the New York Giants made this offseason in terms of the way that they constructed their roster. But hindsight 2020, you can't go back and change the past. So you got to hope that they do a better job going forward. But this is going to be the golden question at year's end. I think all Giants fans realize that right now. Are you going to completely blow it up, or are you going to try to push forward but do something that at least makes the fan base happy in terms of making a change in terms of who's the GM? And I think those are going to be the 2 options by year's end. I see no option unless the Giants win 9 or maybe 8 games where Gettleman is back as the GM. I think he's the pound of flesh, but I think those are your 2 options. You hire from within and try to get another year, or you completely blow it up and you bring in a guy from the outside that's going to get rid of a lot of the players on this football team, and you're going to be starting a brand new rebuild. I think those are the 2 options, and I think Giants fans, need to realize that. But I'm gonna get to Riley's in a second. I just want to read a couple of these. Mike says, "Who's the NPR guy?" NPR guy. I'm not sure what he means. I don't know what that abbreviation means. I wish I did. Damn, Mike, I wish I knew. I don't know what you mean, man. Who's the NPR guy? Don't donate again, but I don't know what you mean by that. Holy Man says, "You're my go-to Giants news guy. Best." I appreciate that, man. Sorry I haven't been delivering the news. Last week I was busy because I was at Comic-Con. And this week, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm a fan at the end of the day. It's what I said at the top of the stream, and I needed a week off from talking about the Giants, to be honest with you, man. I've been beat down with all the injuries and the way this team has played so far this week, but I'm definitely going to have a lot more videos for you guys going forward, especially as the offseason draws nearer and nearer, or this team turns it around. We have a very exciting season throughout the rest of the year, but, man, I appreciate the support, man. And Zahib says, "Guys, we have 0 winning weeks since 2017. I think you mean there's 0 weeks where we've been over 500 since 2017. And that is factual, which is insane. I think we're the only team in the NFL that has not been over 500 since 2017 at any point in the season, which is an incredible stat when you really think about it. But thank you, Zai, man. Thank you very much. And Adam says, "Knowing how ownership is, regardless of record, everybody stays next year." Just I disagree. I do. I really do, Adam. Maybe I'll be wrong. I could see a scenario where if we win like 7 games and Jones looks really good, where they do bring Gettleman back. I could see that scenario. I know a lot of fans in here don't want to hear that. But if they win like 5 games, I can't see that. I can't see the New York Giants selling the fan base on bringing – I don't see them selling the fan base regardless on bringing Gettleman back, to be honest with you, outside of having a winning season. But that would be an incredibly hard sell. So I think Gettleman will be the pound of flesh at the end of the year. I thought that before the year started, but we'll see at the end of the year who's right and who's wrong. Roldy says, if they go with an in-house GM, this organization isn't going to change, and we're going to be right back to where we are. I know some fans want in-house GM because they either don't want Jones or Judge gone. Yeah, I think that's accurate, but I think, and I'm going to let Max speak on this. I think the reason Max has the opinion that he has isn't so much because he's in love with Judge. It's because he doesn't want the New York Giants to become this franchise that's viewed as a incredibly undesirable destination for anybody to want to come here and take a job, because they constantly flip coaches after coaches after coaches after coaches. It's not an ideal scenario, but I'll let Max speak on that.
Yeah, I mean, that has definitely a part to do with it. It's going to affect both the coach and the GM if we choose to fire both of them and start brand new next year. Like I said, with all the cap we have tied up, yes, we have some draft capital, but how much are they really going to get to make the team theirs going into next year anyways? That's a good point too, because like Adore Jackson, you're not getting rid of. Leonard Williams, you're not getting rid of. Kenny Galladay, you're not getting rid of. And we've already moved Bradbury's contract, Shepard's contract. We're pushing all these contracts back right now, even further so far this year, to make more room so that we're.
And you got to ask yourself, Max, are you going to get the best GM candidate, knowing that they know they have to inherit that much of a mess to start? So it's not an ideal scenario for somebody to step into either.
They're going to inherit the same situation Dave Gettleman did, which is the main reason why I want to stick it out one more year. Not because I'm in love with Gettleman or in love with Judge, but I think no matter what you do at the end of the season, if you fire both of them, you're not putting your next GM or coach in a good situation, because the GM's not going to make the roster. It's going to be set in stone because of the salary. And your coach isn't going to be able to coach his team because the GM is stuck with a team that was from Dave Gettleman.
I think it's a fair point. Like I said, I do think it's a fair point, and I think people listening have to at least respect the opinion. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with it, but I do think it's a fair point. I don't see any way you could sell anybody on bringing Gettleman back if they're bad, but in terms of not going completely outside the organization and blowing it up, I think it's a fair point. Rolly, man, thank you very much, guys. If we hire a new GM from outside and wants to get rid of Judge, of course, Rolly, that's my whole problem. And the other thing that I worry about, Rolly, if they do hire, I'm going to ask you, Rolly. I don't want you to have to donate, but just think about this. I'm going to ask you this: do you trust the new John Mara and the New York Giants organization, if they do bring in a GM from the outside? Do you trust them to say complete hands off? You don't have to keep Joe Judge? Because I'm going to be honest with you, I don't. And if that's going to be the case, well, then I don't know if I want them to go out searching for a new GM until such time they feel like they can give that guy free reign. And I don't know if I trust John Mara to do that. History tells us that is not the case. So that's just my opinion. If you're going to bring in a new GM, you have to allow him to bring in a new head coach. I think that's the way it has to work, and you can't force Joe Judge on him. Get rid of him. As much as I like Joe Judge, this is a bad organization. I mean, whatever you want to call it. Elvis, we need change. He's talking to Elvis. He says we need change. I think we all agree on here that the Giants definitely need change.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We need change. But again, we can't just keep on changing head coaches every 2 years. We just can't. Now, and this is coming from a person that blames Joe Judge on the Washington loss and the Atlanta loss. Poor time management, poor timeout usage, the halftime touchdown. So, I mean, we could do a prop bet right now. There's going to be a halftime touchdown tomorrow.
I'm going to tell you this right now, Elvis. The odds on that in Vegas, you should have to bet $1,000 to win $1 that the New York Giants are going to give up a touchdown before the half, because it's going to happen. It's happened each of the first.
Having said that, Joe Judge is learning on the job. Do I want him to learn on the job? No. But we can't keep on firing head coaches.
It's a disaster. It's a disaster. No matter what happens at the end of the year, if they end up firing another head coach after 2 years, I mean, it's as bad as it gets. Yeah. Going through 5 head coaches in a span since 2015, if that were to happen, that's incredible. That's as bad as it gets, man. So I'm with you, man. If I am a head coach with any credentials whatsoever, I'm not taking that job. And all you got to do is look at the Philadelphia Eagles this year. Why, Nick Sirianni, I think we all agree so far from what we've seen, and any Eagles fan watching this probably would agree with me too. He sucks. Like, Nick Sirianni sucks. Okay? Why do you think the Eagles ended up with Nick Sirianni? Because the situation was awful. They just moved on from a head coach, and it was a team that tanked, and they still kept Howie Roseman. It was a disaster. And when you have a situation like that, I don't see what head coach is going to be rushing to take the New York Giants job. Sure, you will get a coach. Of course, you'll get a coach. But are you going to get the coach that could be a guy that could build this team for 5, 6, 7 years? And before you start saying, let's get rid of this guy, let's get rid of this guy, at least those are things that you have to at least think about as a fan. I agree with you guys. I think you're bringing up good points.
You can make the argument the reason why Joe Judge even got his job, and of course Joe Judge wasn't a popular name, was because the Giants, nobody really wanted to go to the Giants. I mean, Matt Rule, if I'm correct, I'm not sure how the whole situation went, but he said he was going to do an interview, and then 24 hours later he signs with the Carolina Panthers. I mean, the whole entire thing we're talking about here about head coaches not wanting to take the Giants job. I mean, your head coach literally is like the epitome of the situation we're talking about right now. And in my opinion, I think a lot of the hatred for Judge sort of comes from perception, and the perception is what he's sort of been talking about, and what he kind of led fans to believe in the offseason, about discipline and going back to hard-nosed football. And obviously that's not what you're getting on the field. So I think a lot of the problems that New York Giant fans are having with Judge is just the perception that we're given in the offseason, and they're obviously not delivering, especially with how they performed last season, with the ending of the last season, how they went on a sort of a couple stretches where they were winning. I think it's just a lot of perception that's going on right here, and a lot of people are just really unhappy with with that Judge talks the talks,
as they should be. I mean, John Mara absolutely deserved to be booed, as far as I'm concerned, by the fan base. It's been a disaster, and he has a lot to do with it. So yeah, I completely listen, man. I don't have the answers. I've tried to come on here since I've been on YouTube and tried to give this rebuild as fair of an opportunity as I could, because I know if you don't give them the opportunity to carry out their plan, and thus far the plan has not worked, and I would not keep Gettleman, because he's had enough chances at this point. But if you keep blowing this up and blowing this up and blowing this up, I've been a Knicks fan my entire life. I've seen what organizations that do that end up as. And the Knicks have been a complete dumpster fire. Even they still didn't win a playoff series, so they've been a complete dumpster fire since 2000, because they flip head coaches and they flip GMs every 2 or 3 years. When you do that, you don't give them an opportunity to build something. Gettleman's had an opportunity. I'm not trying to defend it, but that is why I was outspoken to give him as much of an opportunity as I thought was fit. But it has not worked. I can't come on here and defend Dave Gettleman anymore. It does not work. But I do understand where you're coming from when you say that you don't want to set up a situation that is a complete disaster in terms of firing another head coach just after 2 years. Because the most important part of a football team, as far as I'm concerned, outside of the GM, is the head coach. So you don't want to set up a situation where head coaches don't want to come. John, man, thank you very much. Judge ain't it for a guy that preaches discipline. His team shows none, and we need depth at the linebacker position. It's been ignored way too long. I'm not talking about edge rushers. I'm talking about legit. I agree with that. John, as far as the linebackers and as far as Judge goes, I've been incredibly underwhelmed with him this year. I'll be the first to say it. And I do think he was built up way too much before the year started, and it ultimately set him up for failure if he got up to a slow start. But as far as the linebackers go, I'm in complete agreement with you. I think next year, I'm not saying first round, because I do think there's big needs on this team on the offensive line and the edge rusher. But we need to get a young linebacker on this team. Blake Martinez, you don't know what he's going to be coming back. He's only got a year left on that deal. It's very possible that the New York Giants end up cutting Martinez. It will save them $10 million coming off the injury. So I do think that's a position the New York Giants need to address relatively early in next year's draft. And I've said that pretty consistently the last couple of weeks.
I believe we've ran the 3-4 for the last 4 years on the Schumer and Judge.
Yeah. Betcher was a 3-4. Yep.
And 0 linebackers in the first and second round. Aside from Ojulari this year.
Yep.
I don't know how you run 3-4 and don't draft linebackers.
Edge or outside linebacker.
What were you gonna say, Chris?
Oh, I was gonna say, Ojulari is mostly an outside linebacker, right? He's not
not an inside linebacker, but he's a linebacker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're mostly looking for an inside linebacker, though. I don't think you're looking for him.
Yeah, well, the only inside linebacker we brought in outside of Crowder that was a 7th round pick was Martinez in free agency.
Injured. Yeah,
we have the Giants haven't drafted a first round middle linebacker since Carl Banks.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
It's been that long. So I mean, they have not prioritized the position. Duran, Matt, thank you very much. Based on Tony's small sample size, would you redraft for Slater? Duran, I mean, listen, man, I'm a huge Slater guy. Here's what I'll say, man. I will assess that after next year. Right now I can't argue it. It looks like a great trade. Kadarius Tony looks like he was a steal at 20, and you got a first-round pick. Let's see who the Giants get with that pick. Let's see what pick they ultimately end up getting. Let's see where the Bears finish in the standings. But if the Giants get a good player with that pick, then it was obviously a great idea to trade down. But I can't really assess it until such time I see what the New York Giants end up getting with that Chicago Bears pick. So I would lean that it looks like it was the better decision rather than the take Slater based off the way that Tony's played and the fact that you could still address the offensive line in next year's draft, even though they still should have at least kept Kevin Zeitler, at least in my opinion. They needed to pay some attention to the offensive line or at least draft an offensive lineman later in that draft at some point. But the trade looks great right now, especially with the way that Tony's played. Pete says, new fan here. I appreciate the content you and Bad Dog put out. I appreciate that, Pete the Skeet, man. Pete the Skeet. That's awesome, man. He's got his own logo. I appreciate you for checking in, man. Thank you so much for being a great supporter and welcome to the channel, my man. And let me just see if I got anybody else. I don't like to miss these. I think I got one more. I got Rob, and we're going to continue to talk. Rob says, thoughts on trading 26. All right, let's talk about this. I know this is something that Giant fans always talk about. Also, I don't think we beat the Rams. Your thoughts? I'm not going to say we're definitively not going to beat the Rams. Anything can happen in football, but no, I don't think we're beating the Rams. I'm not picking us. As far as Saquon Barkley goes, everybody's saying trade Saquon Barkley, trade Saquon Barkley, trade Saquon Barkley. And right now, it's not going to happen. You're not going to trade Saquon Barkley because he's hurt. Nobody's taking him. And my answer to you is by year's end, based off the fact that this guy's now had 3 injuries since he's been in the NFL, one of them a very severe injury with the ACL, what are you going to get for him? So my answer to you is, and I'll let everybody speak on this, I don't think the price you would get for Saquon Barkley would warrant trading him. I think you let him play out on the 5th-year option of that rookie salary, and then you determine by year's end that year whether you want to franchise tag him, whether he's willing to come back on a really cheap deal, or whether you just let him walk, or maybe you trade him from within season the following year if he's playing well, if you don't think he's going to be in the long-term plans of this football team. But this offseason, I just don't see a market for Saquon Barkley that would allow us to trade him. Are you going to trade Saquon Barkley for like a 4th-round pick, a 3rd-round pick? I don't think you are. So I just don't see it. I think you let him play it on that 5th-year the 5th year of the deal on the rookie option, and you take it from there. But I just don't see a market for Barkley right now. But I'll let Max start.
Yeah, I'm just going to say a simple no because you're not going to get anything for him, especially based off of my thoughts earlier and how I think they should press forward. You let it play out one more year, and that includes all of the pieces that you're paying relatively cheaply, including Saquon Barkley next year is only $7 million on his 5th-year option?
Yes, $7 million on the 5th-year option, yeah.
For $7 million, I keep him on the team. It's not like I'm paying him, $18 million to be the star running back that we thought he could be. I see how it goes next season. This injury, we say it, but it truly is like a freak injury. It wasn't like he got tackled and hurt. He ran after the play was over, wasn't looking where he was going, and stepped on someone's foot. It's also not going to keep him out the rest of the season. So we'll get a nice sample size, I think, the rest of this year to see how he bounces back off of a small injury after coming back from a severe one already. And I think that'll tell more. But like you said, I don't think you're going to get much for him. With that being said, Chris, I do have to eat dinner still and go to bed because I wake up at 5. But give me the Rams 31-23 as a final score prediction.
That's not what I have. That's a good one. I like it.
I appreciate you having me on. It was nice talking with all of you guys. But I do have to get up at 5, and I haven't eaten dinner yet. So I'm going to go do that, and we'll be cheering on the Giants together tomorrow at 1 o'clock.
Max, man, I just want to say, man, thank you. You've been a great supporter of mine for a while, and thank you so much for coming on. And you did a great job, man. I like to spark the hot topic conversation that you brought with the Gettleman thing. I know that's always interesting for people to talk about, and like that you have some out of the box thinking, even though you're going to take a lot of heat from the fan base. So, yeah, man, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for bringing a good opinion, man.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. I hope I didn't cause too much havoc in your chat here, and I hope everybody has a good night.
No, I think you did a great job, and I think you had valid reasons for why you feel the way that you do.
Alrighty, appreciate it.
Be good, Max. I think we got we got Nikki in the chat as well. Let me bring Nikki on. Nikki's usually got a camera. Right now he doesn't, but maybe he'll pop on the camera when I bring him in. And let me get rid of this chat here. And what's going on, guys? Thanks for popping in. And Nick, oh, there he is. What's up, man? What's up, Nicky?
How you doing, bro?
Glad to see
Guys.
you. What are you dressed up for? You coming home from work?
Hey, he's
No,
got a
so
tie,
I'm
suit.
I'm at a wedding actually. I'm here in Austin, Texas. I'm at a wedding, but I thought I'd sneak away for a little bit.
Oh
to come
my
on the
God, Nicky's
channel.
the man. This guy's at a wedding, probably with his girlfriend, and he's coming on the channel and talking some Giants football. That is a dedicated New York Giants fan. What's
Nobody
up,
knows that I'm gone.
What's going on, my man?
Nothing much. I was thinking. Well, first of all, I'm gonna be watching the game on the plane tomorrow. So that's whether that's good or bad, I don't know. But I'll be sitting there screaming my head off on the plane home back to Jersey tomorrow. I was thinking all week about how a bunch of Giants fans are saying blow it up, and they don't really understand what that means, and about how a lot of these players we can't get rid of. So like Bradbury, we can't get rid of. Adory's not going anywhere. Kenny's not going anywhere. You can't get rid of these guys. Plus, Daniel's playing really good football. You might as well stick with it and again try to win now, kind of like they did in 2018 in a better way than 2018. But with the draft capital we have in this upcoming draft, I think that it's worth it to stick it out. Even though this year is a miserable failure, I think we can still push forward and continue going next year with all the draft capital that we do have and try to get some impact players.
Yeah, Nicky, when I really think about it, and I don't just have like an emotional reaction, which is what I have I'm a fan, and I try not to be super emotional on my channel. But when I really think about it, due to a lot of the factors that you've said, all the cap commitments that we have to these players, I don't think we're going to be able to blow it up. And I'm not saying go out there and you still have to think about your future and think about building your team accordingly. But I am kind of with you. I'm not. I don't think it's really the best year to completely blow up the football team. I think if it fails after next year and you can get out of some of these contracts and you have a much better desirable location for somebody to step in here, if it's not working, I think that's when you really decide to really truly blow this thing up. That's just my opinion, though, and I may feel differently at the end of the year. Right
For
now,
sure. And there's no quarterbacks worth
in.
taking.
Yeah, we're only 5 weeks in, and I might feel differently by the end of week 18. But right now, when I really think about it, I do agree with a lot of your points.
And also, really quickly, so I know DJ broke up with his old girlfriend, Ella, whatever her last name was. They broke up like a month or so ago. His new girlfriend that they haven't gone public yet, but actually was my sister's tennis teammate from high school.
Wait, I'm sorry, you were breaking up a little bit there. What'd you say?
DJ's new girlfriend went to high school with my sister. They were on the tennis team together.
Get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
Wait. So your former neighbors with Saquon Barkley, and now your sister's friend dating Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
Get DJ on the show.
How do you not have a job with the Giants yet, man?
Yeah. Me? How about you? How do you not have a job with the Giants? Are you kidding? Your videos get more views than their own videos, and they're about them. Are you kidding me? Don't do that.
Let me get your take on, because I want to get your opinion a little bit on the game tomorrow, because I've got you haven't gotten to talk too much because you just came on. Do you give the Giants any chance in this game tomorrow?
No, just like how Dion used to say about Eli, I believe in DJ. I do. The Rams defense is nowhere near as good as it was last year, and I think that's primarily due to the fact that they lost Troy Hill, they lost John Johnson, they lost Dante Fowler. So their defense, I don't think that DJ will have as much of a hard time against. Our defense, however, I was thinking about it today, and I was talking with it because the family whose wedding I'm at, they're all diehard Giants fans. They got season tickets. That's how I go to the games. They give me their tickets, or I go with them. And all of them are saying the same thing that I've been thinking, which is that what the heck is going on with Graham? Because honestly, I don't think that Bradbury has fallen off. I don't think Leo has fallen off. I don't think Logan Ryan's fallen off. I don't think their abilities have shown that they've fallen off. I think that the execution is a bit spotty. Now, Bad Dog brought up something a couple months ago that really made me think, and it was, do we have too many coaches? And when you're trying to execute a play or a whole scheme on a defense, and you have 8 different voices in your ear telling you to do something, and they more than likely aren't all going to match up, I think that's going to screw with the defense. So I do think that maybe we have too many coaches, and I think the defense is plenty talented. Last week everyone's killing Bradbury for getting toasted by CeeDee Lamb. And I think Bradbury was in good coverage. I think it was a perfectly thrown ball, and he was expecting Julian Love to do his job and be there for him, and he was shading to his side. He should have been there. So I know I've gone off on a little bit of a tangent, but my confidence in the defense is still such as it was last year. It's whether or not they can put it on the field. It was there against Atlanta. Leo,
so you're basically saying you think the talent's here. It's just either it's a little bit of poor execution and a little bit of poor game planning by Patrick Graham.
Absolutely. I believe the talent's there. Even if you look at, I know some people hate PFF. I use them as one of my best tools. Like even Bradbury, he's still grading out as an average corner, a slightly above average corner in PFF. You know what the difference is? A few plays made by safeties that would help him out last year. They just aren't hitting this year. I think Bradbury's still a very good corner. He's been toasted a few times, but honestly, like the big catch he gave up to Deontay Harris or Marquez Callaway, whoever it was for the Saints, like that's not on him. That's the coaching staff putting him in a position where they have a corner who ran 4.6 at the combine on a receiver who ran 4.3 at the combine. That's not his fault. You can't ask him to make that play every single time. That's the safeties not doing their jobs.
Yeah, I definitely think there's some legitimacy to what you're saying, and I do think they have enough talent on this defense for them to have a good defense. I can't put my finger on what the exact problem is. I know a lot of people have said it's Dalvin Tomlinson. I don't know, man. I really don't. And I love Dalvin Tomlinson, captain of the football team. I always thought he was underappreciated, and it definitely has some impact. But I don't think that's like the driving force.
Well, I know that you said that, and I agreed with you that you had faith that after week 1, so this is going back almost a month ago now, that you had faith the defense would progress and get better. And I agreed with you. I felt the same way. And I think that it would be better than it is right now if we had Blake Martinez. Look, the defense going into the Dallas game was ranked dead center, middle of the pack in the league. It was. If we had Blake, you don't think that it's maybe 2 or 3 spots above that, one of the best run-stuffing linebackers in the NFL? And then you have what happened last week. Now we're, 24th ranked in the league after what happened to the offense that they couldn't stay in the field. That wasn't a defense's fault. They fought their asses off last week. Excuse my French, but
here's my issue with the defense.
They fought so hard. They fought so hard last week, and I don't think it's their fault they're ranked 24th right now after last week's performance. The offense couldn't give them any help.
Here's my issue with the defense. And I said that as well. I do think that was a game that you couldn't rely on the defense to carry you going up against the Dallas Cowboys offense. And the only chance the Giants were going to have, our best defense in that game was going to be the offense, being able to sustain drives, keep that opposing offense off the field. And the defense did not play well, but also factor in that they're playing one of the most dynamic offenses in football. And like you said, Blake Martinez is out. But my issue with the defense is this, Nikki. And I think it's definitely part personnel, not having a top-tier edge rusher. And I think it's definitely part scheme and not doing a good job in terms of putting guys in the right situations. We have not generated any type of pass rush whatsoever this year at all. That, to me, is a major problem.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I know everyone's talking, Kayvon Thibodeau. That's who everyone wants right now. They want Thibodeau. They want Neal. Frankly, I don't know if we're going to get a shot at either of them, and I don't want that to discourage Giants fans because I know a lot of us are looking ahead to the draft right now, myself included. My eye right now is on Aiden Hutchinson, the edge rusher from Michigan. He's that next tier. I'm not going to even try to pronounce the other guy's name, but he's from South Carolina. He's coming on too, pretty strong. He's really good. So don't get discouraged. We're not going to get Thibodeau. He'll be a top 2 or 3 pick, and I don't think either of our picks will be that high. But yeah, I think the edge presence. If we were producing pressure at the rate we were last year, that pressure in combination with Blake Martinez, I think that gets our defense this year at least to be on par with what it was last year. But this year, I don't know if its offenses have figured out Patrick Graham's game plans to scheme up pressure, his exotic blitzes and all that stuff, if they've been able to just pick it up. But all those things combined, that gives you a pretty solid answer as to why our defense isn't elite this year like a lot of us thought it would be.
I also think they're playing a harder schedule.
For sure. Yeah. I had that conversation today. But you always talk about you brought up the list of the quarterbacks that we went up against last year, and it was just disgraceful. And I was talking today with the families that are here at the wedding, and they all have Giant season tickets. So what's going on with the defense? I'm like, I pulled up. I think you tweeted it, or Kid Blue, or somebody tweeted the list of the quarterbacks, and I pulled it up and I showed him this is why our defense isn't as good as it was last year. and they saw Brandon Allen, they saw Alex Smith on one leg. They saw all these other guys, and that's why our defense isn't as good this year.
I think that has something to do with it as well, and I'm guilty of it. I overestimated them this year. I thought they'd be better than they were. So I think there's still definitely pieces that they need to build on. But I think some of what you said is accurate. I do think that this defense has enough talent to be performing better than what they are. I'll say that. And I think some of that definitely falls on the coaching. But to me, and kind of like I said earlier, the thing that really bothers me about this defense is the situational football. They give up a touchdown to close out the half every game for the first 5 weeks this year.
Unbelievable.
That can't happen. I know they were working on the 2-minute defense this past week, but I just hope the defense starts to click and it gets better throughout the year. I just want to read a couple of these before I lose them. Rob, man, thank you very much. Trading 26 fan base seems to be split on. Thinking we get 2 1s, or we're not getting 2 1s for Saquon Barkley.
No way.
Or we fix the line will be great. I think average till his contract expires, then release. If you could get 2 firsts for Saquon Barkley, I'm running right now to trade him. And I love Saquon Barkley. I'm rushing right now to the team to give it. You're not getting that for Saquon Barkley. You're just not with the injury history. You're not getting a first for him right now. You're just not. Rolly, man, thank you very much. Yes, the new GM will inherit the same thing Dave Gettleman did. The problem is Gettleman built the team the wrong way. For God's sakes, the guy tried to rebuild and win at 2018 was a disaster. We all know that. A lot of it definitely falls on Gettleman. I think some of it's definitely owner influenced. Who knows? The new GM may build the right way. He might. He might. I understand both sides of it, and I've gotten to a point where I'm completely open to a complete rebuild if they feel like that's the best course of action. Dive says, I feel like we're stuck in time and can't get out. It all starts with Mara's philosophical structure. I just thought about Chris Mara taking over. Oh, God. You would think that they will hire from within the family. And I know he's kind of in a lot of Giants fans have been going after him as well and why he's on the coaching staff. And John says, not sure if you heard Carl Banks' podcast. Basically, our defensive players don't pursue opponents. I did not get a chance to hear it. They just stay on their assignments side. Pure laziness. Here's the thing I want to say, and I want to turn it to somebody else here, anybody that else wants to speak on this. The one thing I will say, and I don't necessarily disagree with a lot of the things that Nicky had to say regarding the defense in terms of having the talent, but one thing that I've really noticed this year, and it has nothing to do with playing an upper schedule, the poor tackling. Like, that was not in existence last year. The New York Giants tackling this year has been abysmal. And it's been every week. You think about the Saints game with Taysom Hill. Yeah. Like that, there's no excuses for that. And I don't understand what's going on with that.
It goes down to coaching, really. Tackling is. Of course, when you're in the NFL, you should already be able to tackle or not to take a hit. But again, I think it's a coaching staff that has to reinforce that tackling ability. Of course, when you're coming out of college, you're honing in your skills. But again, you got rookies coming in who they also have to learn as well, and you have veterans who they have to also reinstall that tackling ability as well. But I think the biggest problem with the Giants defense right now is sort of the interior defensive line is not. It's not that they're not getting home, but they're also not stopping the run. And I think that's where you can start going into the draft and start looking at players like Jordan Davis. Or they're huge and they're nose tackles who can get in the pocket and they can stuff running backs at the line. The tennis ball didn't work. It doesn't work. Yeah.
Marco says, "I guess the tennis balls didn't work." Yeah,
I think they did work. I know you guys are most likely joking about the tennis balls, but I don't know how many pass interference calls we've had this year. 1 or 2, I can remember maybe. But last year in 2020, the Giants went from, in 2019, I believe, the 3rd most pass interference calls in the league, down to 2nd behind only Cleveland last year. I do think the tennis balls work. I know the media made fun of them for that, but they did work. Trust me.
Yeah, the tennis balls have nothing to do with the poor tackling. That has to do with disciplining yourself not to get pass interference penalties and defensive holding penalties. But I just thought it was funny when I saw it. But.
Do you think that Xavier McKinney's too small to be a strong safety? Because he seems to be one of the ones missing a lot of the tackles. And he's a guy that likes to bring the thump, but he can't wrap up anybody to save his life right now. And
I was saying it earlier, man. The first game, he got thrown to the ground like a ragdoll when he was trying to blitz
Teddy Bridgewater.
And I'm looking at his height and weight right now. He's 6'2". I don't. Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Wait, how tall is he? 6'2"?
6'2", 201.
It's not small. Maybe his weight is too old. Yeah.
But then you
he's
get
not-
another
he's
Landon
physically not
Collins if he
small.
puts on weight. Like, what do you do, man?
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good
Well,
point, Nicky.
Yeah,
I-
you have to put him in a hybrid spot then, because then he'd have to be a line. If he puts on weight, he'd be a box safety / linebacker. He's already a strong safety, so.
Yeah. Taco said, I'll let you guys answer this. I don't know if you guys are fantasy players. Taco says, who would you start in fantasy, Shepard or Booker? We'll start with
Booker,
Alex.
100%.
Shep.
Is Shep even playing?
Shepard's going to
He's-
play. Yeah.
Playing.
Yeah, don't start Shep. Or well, maybe because of how banged up. Is Galladay playing? By any chance?
No,
he's not.
Holiday's
playing.
not playing.
No.
Yeah, then you could start any. You can start one at if you're gonna start Booker, start him at flex. You don't want Booker being your running back 2 or 1.
What about you, Elvis? Who are you taking?
I'm taking Shepard. I
Taking
don't think.
Shepard.
I think the Giants' run game is going to be non-existent tomorrow.
Yeah. If I had to pick one and I don't love either option, I think I'd go with Shepard. I think Booker's the safer play because you know he's going to get his touches and you don't know how much they're going to use Shepard coming off the injury and the fact that Kadarius Tony's got more of an expanded role. But I think like kind of what we said earlier in the stream, Elvis, I think the Giants in this game, especially with the concussion to Daniel Jones, they're going to look to get the ball out quick. And I think that's going to lend itself to a lot of targets, underneath. And that's kind of where Shepard excels. What I'm interested to see in this game is if Shepard has a full role. And granted, Galladay's not out there, but does Shepard play in the slot or does Tony play in the slot? Because Tony's look really good in the slot.
Tony 100%. Tony 100%. His size, Tony's size.
I'm gonna give my take on this real quick. First of all, to answer the question directly, I would start Booker. I have
He's
both.
safe.
I have Booker and Shep both in multiple fantasy leagues. If you have Tony, you start him over both of them, regardless. But so the reason I would go with Booker is because if Shep was back by himself and not Slayton, I would say I'd probably go with Shep. But Slayton is coming back with Shep. Now, knowing that the Giants fan base is very much for throw it to 89, much like they were with throw it to 13 5 years ago. If the Giants don't throw it to 89, they know that the fan base is gonna want their pound of flesh. So I think Tony is the player that would have more plays designed for him, unlike Shep. Shep is a guy you're going to throw underneath, yeah, but in this game, I think he'll be lined up outside. And honestly, I think Tony's a better outside receiver. So Shep isn't the guy that can come down with 50-50 balls like that. And that's where running routes on the outside, that's part of what your job is. Booker, we saw last week, get 2 touchdowns, a rushing and receiving touchdown with no Saquon. What do you think they're going to do on the goal line? They're going to pound it in with Booker. I think he's safe for at least 1 touchdown this week. I really do. Against defense that's probably going to say beat us with Booker because we don't have Saquon. They're going to probably be protecting the pass as opposed to trying to stop the run this week, I would think. So I would go with Booker. And
I figured out who the I started muting the mics one at a time. The backfeed is coming from Riley. I don't know why, but the backfeed's coming from Riley. So I don't know if there's a way maybe you could try to fix the mic. I don't know, but I started muting one mic at a time, and it's coming from Riley. So that's who it is. But it's not Elvis. Yeah, it's Riley. Booker's gonna get touches. Yeah, I agree. That's why I think Booker's the safer player. But I think I think Shepard's probably got higher upside. I would say that. So I think it depends on how you feel about your overall matchup, whether you not you need a lot of points in terms of the stats. But anything else you guys want to talk about?
I think just to chime in again on the Booker Shepard deal, I think you look at it the way that you value Daniel Jones and the way that he'll be used this game, because again Jones is going to be playing, but I don't think I'd start Shepard just for the fact that Jones is coming off a concussion and is coming off an injury. I think it's kind of a risky move because we don't know how Jones is going to operate. Maybe we don't know if he's going to be the same Jones that he was for the past 5 games, or if he's going to be, really off. So I think you go with the safer pick and go with Booker 100%. Unless you go to the market. If I'm you, I'm going to the market. I'm trying to get, somebody better than Booker. I'm trying to get somebody better than Shepard.
Yeah. I'm not in love with either option tomorrow. But if you got to go with one.
Unfortunately for me, Booker's my number 2 running back. this week.
He is for me too in one of my leagues.
Oh, God.
I had Barkley and he's my handcuff.
Yeah.
Dyer, man, thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. He says, we all know the top needs for this team. For me, I want the O-line and edge. The question is, do we trust this regime to draft the right guys? How far back would this take us if we miss with an extra first? It's a great point.
I don't think. Oh, sorry. No, you want to go first?
No, go ahead.
Honestly, I don't think it sets us back any because I don't think that the first round of this draft is the only place we're going to be drafting O-line. So the likelihood of missing on 2 or 3 O-linemen in this draft isn't very. You got to hit on at least one of them. And I do think that next year, regardless of if we miss on a guy, which I feel like we're likely going to go interior. Chris, Tyler Linderbaum has been my guy like since summer. So
I already know I want to draft him next year. I already know it. Depending on where we're picking, but I already know he's a guy that I definitely am going to have my eye
And
on.
even if he is a miss, and I would bet my home that he's not a miss, I think he's that dude. We have Lemieux and Gates both coming back next year. So I think the O-line, regardless, is going to be better next year than it is this year. I think from now on, I think Pert's going to be starting over Solder. And I think that Pert, even next year, even if he's not the guy of the future, is at least going to be better than what he was this year. So I don't know that it sets us back much, but we might not have as high of a ceiling as if we did hit on it. So I think we have more of a floor next year with the O-line, with the guys coming back from injury, plus all the extra draft picks.
How much back can we get? I mean, let's be honest. How much back?
Great point.
What, I'm sorry. What did you say, Elvis?
How much back can we get?
Back in terms of what? How much back can we get in terms of what?
How much could it set us back?
On a first
how much? Yeah. Not much.
Yeah, how much?
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah, I think. Yeah, you're great. I think that where the Giants are going to be picking, it's going to be very hard. Like if Tyler Linderbaum's there and it makes sense, I don't think many people are going to argue with that pick. If the New York Giants,
he'll be there for sure for at least one of our picks, and if we don't take him, I'm gonna throw a sink out my window. I don't know what I would do.
And what I will say, and again, I'm not defending Gettleman. At this point, I think Dave Gettleman's a complete failure until proven otherwise. But the Andrew Thomas pick was a good pick.
Oh, yeah.
Kadarius Tony right now looks like a good pick. So the last 2 drafts, I mean, pretty good picks, right? I mean, I know we hate the guy and we want to move on, but it's kind of hard to argue about the Tony pick right now at 20th overall. And it's kind of hard to argue about the Andrew Thomas pick, the way that he looked the first 4 games so far.
It's kind of hard to argue about the DJ pick, honestly. If he's your guy, you take him, and we've seen the progression this year. I wanted to point out one thing about DJ this year, and I know that he only has 4 touchdown passes, and we're going into week 6 right now. And about the whole, Danny turnovers, Danny fumbles that everyone likes to call him. Jason Garrett likes to call all these curls and these hitches and stick routes. You know what the 3 most picked off routes, like on a per route basis, are in the NFL? Their sticks, their curls, and their hitches and their comebacks. And that's what Jason Garrett likes to run. And DJ still hasn't thrown a pick on any single one of those. That's the level of turnover-free football DJ is playing right now. And I think that is worth commending. That is unbelievable, in my opinion.
Well, I don't think it's Garrett's fault though, because Garrett has to run hitches, comebacks, and slants and other short routes because of his offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Jones has shown that he has a somewhat of a deep ball, but I think he's kind of forced to relegate the whole entire offense into a short.
I don't know about that.
Chunk play offense.
I don't know.
The offensive line. The offensive line is not. It's not good. Besides the left side's good. But you can't have one side operating.
I think that last week I would agree with you for last week by itself. However, the weeks before that, you had Andrew Thomas being isolated with whatever team's best edge rusher it was, and what that does for you is you're able to slide protection away from Andrew Thomas and help out whoever's playing center, left guard, right guard, whatever. You can take those 4 guys and mix them however you want to double team whoever you want, because you got a strong defense at the left tackle. This past week, you didn't see that. You saw Nate Solder getting beat, having to slide protection to the left that time. Now, I will agree that for last week, that might be why, and that's also why after Kadarius Tony went out, you saw Jason Garrett revert into his old play calling habits. But prior to that, throughout the first 4 weeks of the season, DJ was among the top half of the league in time elapsed before he got rid of the ball. So I do think that, through those 4 games, Jason Garrett was still calling a lot of those routes, a lot of those play calls, and DJ still not throwing a pick. I think is very commendable in that time.
I think it's a combination of that. I think the biggest problem with the Giants right now, or one of the biggest problem with the Giants, is you can't really pinpoint what the problem is because there's so many factors. For people that like to say it's all Garrett, I disagree. I think there's other factors. I do, to what Chris said, I do think the offensive line is a factor, right? I think the fact that you can't have enough time to run as many deep plays as you want because you can't trust your offensive line is certainly a factor. The fact that you can't establish the run is a factor. But I also agree that Garrett is not the most innovative play caller. So I don't think that there's one specific problem. I think there's a lot of problems, and it's very hard to pinpoint what the main problem is because there's so many problems with the football team.
I mean, Chris, I'm just wondering if you want to speak about innovation, what offenses do you consider innovative in the NFL
team
right
we're
now?
playing this week, I think, is pretty innovative.
Do you consider the Chiefs in it pretty innovative?
Yeah, Andy Reid is one of the greatest offensive minds in football history.
So the thing is that I don't think you should be kind of soaring. I mean, of course, every offense should be somewhat innovative, but I think if you're gonna compare like the Giants' offense to the Rams' offense to the Chiefs' offense, you don't have the quarterback, you don't have the wide receiver core. You don't have someone. Chiefs O-line it's mediocre, but you don't have the same offenses. You don't have the same coaches as those teams. So I think it's hard to compare yourself or sort of look for reference to other teams and look at the Giants. Because
I agree with you with
Tony,
the coaches. I agree with you with the coaches. I don't know about the personnel.
Mhm.
I know obviously Patrick Mahomes and Matthew Stafford at this point are better than DJ, but still DJ's playing at a top 10 level this year. I'm not afraid of saying that. If you look at the Chiefs receiving core, I'm sorry, they might have the better players, but they're nowhere near deeper than the Giants receiving core. I mean, they got Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce.
That's pretty damn good, though, man.
Yeah, that's probably better than your own.
Yes, but it's a lot easier to eliminate the skill positions of that team than it would be to eliminate the skill positions of a team that's much deeper. Like, I'm sorry, but Byron Pringle, Mecole Hardman, they're not starting on almost any other receiving core in the league.
Well, I mean,
maybe two other ones. Like they're not.
Here's
but
what
you
I'll
understand.
Here's what I'll say about the Chiefs. I think the biggest driving force with the Chiefs is Andy Reid.
Absolutely.
I've always had tremendous respect for Andy Reid. I hated him with the Eagles, and I was so happy when the Eagles fired him. You look what he was able to get out of guys like Todd Pinkston and James Thrash as his number 1 and 2 wide receivers. He's always been incredibly innovative. So he, obviously Mahomes is going to get the majority of the credit. Mahomes is fantastic, but I think Andy Reid is throwing away the driving force there, and we don't have anybody close to Andy Reid. Most teams don't. From that perspective, but I could just as easily say it's not easy to find a guy like Andy Reid. But I think it's a combination of a bunch of things. John says, Chris, at least the Knicks games will be entertaining. I hope so, man. Hopefully they have a much better season than the Giants have had so far this year.
How exciting is the East going to be in the NBA this year?
I know you're a big hoops fan, Elvis.
Go Raptors.
I'm excited, man. I'm excited this year, but as excited as I am about the New York Knicks improving, the one thing that kind of keeps me grounded a little bit in terms of my expectations this year, like you just said, the East is so much better. Every team in the East got better, and the Knicks are going to be a really fun team, but the East is going to be tough, man.
I can't believe Julius hit that game-winning shot the other night because where was that in the playoffs last season? Are you kidding me? Where was that?
Yo, Chris, I was wondering if we can bring Kenny on. I think we gave him the link on the Discord. Is there any way we can bring him on for a few final thoughts?
Sure. Let's bring Kenny on real quick. And then we're going to close this out in about 10 minutes. But I'll bring Kenny on for a minute, and then I want to allow Riley has to talk now. I want to allow Riley to talk too. Kenny with the Daniel Jones pick. What's up, man?
You can hear me, Chris?
I hear you. What's up, buddy?
All right. So first, I want to say, Daniel Jones is the guy. Did you see how he played? But Daniel Jones was bad. That's what Daniel Jones was bad. I'm sorry.
He didn't even play.
He did not look good. He did not look good. It's because half of that was because of Soder. Soder was going to beat every play. But Daniel Jones versus the Saints, oh my God, he put the team on his back,
Yeah, he
pocket
did.
after
For sure.
pocket. Yeah,
Yeah, I think
clean
you're right
pocket. I
about
told
Solder, man. Did you see
Tom
Solder had like
Iguodala.
a 14 grade in pass blocking from
Yeah.
PFF? A 14? That's hard to do, man.
I'm the one. You know what I want to say? Elite ball placement. I made that up. I made it up because I said I watched the film. I saw how Daniel Jones played. I made up that term, elite ball placement. That's why you see everyone saying that. But I think Daniel Jones is the guy. Just give him a clean pocket, and he will perform. I'm telling you, he will perform.
At the
He
skill
will
positions, the Giants are just as good as any team in the NFL. We're talking about Saquon Barkley, Kenny Galladay. I have a high ceiling on Tony Shepard.
Yes.
I mean, how much better do you need to get?
Oh, so Elvis, you're saying just in terms of the skill positions?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they're the best, but here's what I'll say: it's definitely good enough. Where if everything else is operating accordingly, you should have a good offense. There's no doubt about it. You're talking about a guy that's a dynamic playmaker now, and Tony Galladay, Barkley's hurt, but I agree with you in terms of the weapons. There's no excuses for why this offense shouldn't be, a very good offense. The problem is, and I think you agree with me, Elvis.
The O-line.
The scheme isn't the best, but the offensive line is a disaster. And I know it's been a little bit better than we've expected this year, but it still hasn't been great.
No.
And that's it, man. It's like if you don't have enough time to operate, I don't care who your weapons are. I don't care who your weapons are. You're not going to be able to have a consistent offense. Even when we had Odell, who was the most explosive playmaker in the league, yeah, he scored touchdowns. Yeah, he created big plays. But our offense wasn't fluid. How often did we have great drives and, we couldn't establish a ground game because we couldn't block? So until we get that situated, I don't care who the pieces are, we're not going to have a great offense, especially with the play call that we have. It's not like we have Andy Reid.
And the defenses know that. That's why they're pinning their ears back. They're creeping 8 in the box. They don't play high safety because the Giants are not going to go deep because DJ doesn't have time. So we can't keep the defense honest. So we can't run. We can't pass. That O-line needs to be fixed, and that's on Gettleman. At the end of the day, that's on Gettleman. Gettleman said, "I'm going to fix the O-line," and he has not.
Yeah, I know. I agree. It's been 4 years offensive line outside of Andrew Thomas. We don't have a definitive answer. And I just want to answer this. Nick Yak said you you were happy. I did not say I was happy. You said you were happy that we passed on Slater. No, what I said was it's kind of hard to argue against the trade right now based off the way that Tony has looked and the fact that we have a future first-round pick. And I'm going to wait till next year to see what we do with that pick before I come to my final conclusion. But no, I wanted Rashawn Slater. I don't hide that. Rashawn Slater, to me, was one of the top 6 or 7 prospects in this year's draft at a position that I thought we needed to address. So I wouldn't say I'm happy, but I would say that based off the way that Tony has played, it's very hard to say that the New York Giants didn't get great value with that trade value.
I think
I have one last question.
The highest maximum value we can get for that is Tony continues on the trajectory that he's on, and that Rashawn Slater turns into Evan Neal. So would you rather take Rashawn Slater now or Tony now and Neal in the future? So
if you get him.
Yeah.
Get
I mean, can you imagine, man? That's the hell of a trade.
Yeah, if you get him and Evan Neal turns out good, of course it ends up being a great trade. But the thing I will say is you got to judge it on the Bears pick, not our pick. But if you end up getting him, Kenny, I think you were about to say something.
Yes, fire Gettleman. People saying fire Gettleman. Are you serious? Kadarius Tony and a first-round pick.
Came on here for hot takes, man.
How many
what do you mean
times?
you serious? How could you come on here? And I've been a guy that has supported Gettleman for as long as I think I could.
If you're older than 12 years old.
Kenny? Wait. How could you come on here, Kenny, and say, are you serious? The team has won, 16 games since he's been the general manager?
Franchise quarterback, star receiver, and a first-round pick, franchise left tackle, the good edge rusher. Just because our defense is underperforming, sure, but it could get better. The first 5 weeks, our defense wasn't that good. We a backup quarterback had 37 points on us. It improved. We shut down Russell Wilson. We gave Tom Brady fits. That was all happened mid-season. We can improve.
You also hired a head coach that makes their players run after fights and stuff like that. I think if anything, Gettleman is definitely on the hot seat. I wouldn't say, "Are you serious?"
I just think
So it's
Let's
not
relax here. Like,
invisible.
you know how many talent he gave us? He gave Dame Jones room to succeed. It's just unfortunate with the injuries. Like Barkley, he like it's so unfortunate how Barkley got hurt last week.
Well,
He turned
you're one in
around
five.
Logan,
Te-
and then he stepped on
Teams
someone's ankle. It's
teams
it was
don't win in the first
unfortunate.
round. You're supposed to hit on your first round picks. Give me a
Yeah,
second
exactly.
round. Will Hernandez, garbage. McKinley, garbage. Give me.
Oh,
a
Hernandez is not.
McKinney's
garbage.
not garbage.
Kenny's not garbage.
Yeah, Hernandez is not garbage.
no,
He's a decent guard.
No, he's had some. Not like Crowder looks like a really good pick as Mr. Irrelevant. He's had some, but overall,
Holmes
yeah.
is good.
You look back at his 2018 draft. Let's go over it real quick. Saquon Barkley. I think we could all agree at this point it probably wasn't the best pick.
Yep.
Will Hernandez, maybe you want to say it was a mediocre pick. It definitely wasn't a great one. BJ Hill's not on the team anymore. Lorenzo Carter's not going to be on the team at the end of this year. Kyle Lalletta's gone. And what's his name? RJ McIntosh is no longer here. 2019. Let's start at the top. That was a draft we took Daniel Jones, so that's still up for interpretation. Could be a good pick. Dexter Lawrence, was it worth the 17?
Good
pick?
player, not good value.
Yeah, was it good value? DeAndre Baker, we traded up to get him. Was that a good pick? O'Shane Zimenez, was that a good pick?
You got Leonard Williams for Ashton Davis. Who was that?
Leo is not good, though.
Ashton Davis sucks. He's a bum. We got Leonard Williams. That trade we won. No one talks about how good that trade was. We won that trade.
But Leo,
oh my goodness.
Leo's he's not producing though.
That's not true. Yes, he's
Leo's not producing.
Leo's been
He's absolutely
stout in the
producing.
run game,
So
but
Leo's
getting
being paid.
pressure.
Leo's being paid $6 million less than Joey Bosa.
Look at Chris Jones' stats. Chris Jones.
Yeah, Chris Jones is washed. He's not a good player.
They're all
That's
identical.
ridiculous. He's absolutely a great player.
Chris Jones is an average player right now.
Chris Jones. Do you know why he's an average player right now?
He's also been injured too. So.
You know why he's an average player right now? Because he's playing out of position. Because Steve Spagnuolo has his best pass rusher, a defensive tackle, playing defensive end. He's playing out of position right now. He's so good that they can afford to put him somewhere else where he's not as effective. That's why he's underperforming right now. For Leo right now, Leo has the same amount of sacks as he did at this point last year. He has almost twice the amount of pressures as he did at this point last year. The sacks will come. Trust me. The coverage isn't there for him to get home right now. Sacks are such a volatile stat that you can't go off that. Pressures and QB hits are where you need to go. And he's ahead of where he was last year with that. And also this year, he's even better in the run than he was last year.
That's definitely overrated.
I think I lost one of the guests.
Elvis.
Yeah, Elvis. Maybe we crapped out or maybe had to go, but I'm going to close this out in a minute anyway. But I just want to give you guys a couple of guys an opportunity to come on. Dire Giants fans, i.e. last Super Bowl, no O-line. Yeah, I mean, everybody knows it. You need a line to be successful, Dyer. And Matthew says we need Kenny and Bad Dog together. Oh, God. And Matthew, man, thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. But, yeah, I'm going to close. It's 11:30. I didn't want to go much later tonight, man. But real quick, let me get all your guys' predictions. And I'm sorry, Elvis, if it crapped out, man. I wanted to get an opportunity to say goodnight to you, man. I know you're a great supporter of mine and looking forward to talking Knicks with you in the future if you're listening. But I want to get your guys' final score for tomorrow's game, and then we're going to close it out. We'll start with Sonor, and we'll go around.
Let's see. I'll go 35-21. Rams win. I think the Rams are going to win big time, in my opinion. That offense is insane.
I think a lot of Giants fans would agree with you on that. I think that's somewhat reasonable. Go ahead, Riley. What do you got? Oh, you already told me, but go ahead. Give me the final score again.
I got the Giants winning 25-24. Like I said.
Love it. Let's go with Kenny. Give me this. I know Kenny's picking the Giants. Go ahead. Kenny?
That prediction. Yeah. I'm 50-50. You know, the Rams defense is good on paper, but they lost Darius Williams, this cornerback too. So they have a 4th-round pick rookie, and their defense hasn't been that good. They're giving up 4.5 yards per carry, which is 24th in the league. 10th best in passing yards, but last year they were first. But so their defense has regressed. So I think we can score on them. I think we could it can be how can I say it? we can compete against them. It won't be a blowout. I don't think.
I agree with
don't
that.
think it'll be a
I
blowout.
agree with
We
that.
can
I think we
compete.
will compete with them.
I think we lose by like 3 points. 3 points. 24. I give it 2017. How about that? Stafford will. We will give the defense will perform. I think the defense will perform. It's only a matter of time. Our secondary is too good. I know it's regressed, but our secondary is too talented. Like our CB2 who was it? The one with the dreads. I forgot his name. Like he was bad. Like our CB2, Yadam.
Oh, you're talking about Isaac Yadam. You're talking about Isaac Yadam.
Yeah, Yadam and the other guy from he wasn't
Montre
good.
Harper.
Yeah, Montre Harper. Yadam,
Yeah, but
like,
I mean, Kenny, you want to talk about if you're talking about the Rams last year, I mean, they didn't have Matt Stafford.
yeah, but it's not like
That's a big step up from Jared Goff.
sure. Yeah, sure. He's all right. Yeah, yeah, that's good. But it's still.
But you got the Giants losing by a field goal.
Yeah, by a field goal.
Diehard says Kenny share with the rest of us. I think he's implying that Kenny must be smoking some Mary Jane. But Nikki, man, go ahead, man. Give me your final score prediction.
So interesting. I'm sitting here. I got the Arizona State-Utah game on right in front of me. And across the bottom of the screen comes the Giants-Rams game. The lines moved a little bit. I believe that as I woke up this morning, the line was 9.5, and now it's 8. I don't know if that's anything injury-related or what, but a whole 1.5 in one day. That makes me a little bit more optimistic. I believe the football index chance to win this morning was 74, and now it's 69 for the Rams. That makes me feel a little bit better, but I'm still going to go 34-27 Rams. I think we can score on them, but I still think that Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods are way too good for us to be able to handle, even with our corners.
Yeah, and Diehard, I don't think I missed your super chat, but I'll just double check and make sure. I think I just read it, but maybe you didn't hear me. I'll read it again. You said, Kenny, share with the rest of us. Yeah, I read it already, man. Maybe you didn't hear me, but yeah, I told Kenny that share with the rest of us. He's got to be smoking something based on some of the opinions that he's had. But I agree with a lot of what you said. Listen, I do think we can keep it close. The one thing that jumped off the page to me, kind of like what Kenny said, the Rams defense this year has not been nearly as good as what I thought it would be. Granted, they've played 5 pretty good opponents when you look at their schedule, so that may have something to do with their, the 20. I think they've given up the 23rd most yards in football, and there's, I think they're only averaging 3.7 yards on the ground per carry. So I do think the Giants can keep it a little bit closer, maybe than some people think. I think the reason I said this earlier, Nikki, the reason that the line dropped from like 10 to 8 was because I think, this is just me assuming, that Vegas was assuming that Jones was not going to play. And then when they found out that Jones was going to play coming off the concussion, maybe the line dropped by a point or two. That's just me guessing. But I like the line. I think that's right around where it'll be. I think it's about 8. I'm going to have the Giants lose by about a touchdown. I'll go 27-20, something like that. I'll go the Rams by about 7, something like that.
That seems like it could be a realistic score. Yeah.
Riley, what were you going to say, buddy?
I was going to say that I did see that Aaron Donald did have like a knee injury that he did practice, but he did not practice on like Wednesday, I think it was. But yeah, I think that could be another reason.
Maybe.
No, that don't matter. Aaron Donald could go up against Bredesen and Price or whoever in his sleep. It doesn't even matter. All he needs is his left pinky. That's it.
Foxy Dog agrees with what Nikki said about Kupp. Yeah, that to me is the biggest key on defense. I just don't know how I don't know how we're taking him out. I mean, with the way our slot corners have played this year, the guy's averaging over 100 yards a game. That's obviously the biggest worry for me as a Giants fan going into this game, and at least in terms of defensively, I do think we could keep their rushing attack somewhat in check. But Cooper Kupp and obviously.
I know I'm a minority right now, and he's nowhere near in the MVP betting odds. But honestly, my MVP right now is Cooper Kupp. I think that he has a special connection with Matthew Stafford, even though they've only been together for such a short amount of time. But the way he runs routes, he creates separation, how he lays out for the ball, that kind of effort that Cooper Kupp puts in every single day is what I wish I could see from a Giants wide receiver. That's what we used to see from Odell. And I think that if it wasn't for Cooper Kupp, I don't think Matthew Stafford would even be regarded in the top 10 MVP odds right now. My MVP thus far is Cooper Kupp.
Wow, that's a hot take.
Yeah.
But it's a good one. He's off to an incredible start. I got to go with Kyler Murray so far. I mean, the Cardinals are 5-0, and Murray's look really good, and I know that's kind of the popular answer right now, but I think that's what I'd go with. But yeah, Kupp's definitely been. If you're going with a non-quarterback, he's probably the guy I'd go with. So
Yeah.
yeah, good take by you. But I'm gonna close this out, man. I just want to say thank you to everybody for tuning in. And again, I apologize to Elvis. I don't know if it crapped out or whatever, but thank you for coming on. And yeah, thank you to each and every one of you guys, man, for being the best supporters on YouTube. I say it all the time. Thank you guys, everybody in the chat, everybody that came on via the video call. And yeah, we'll definitely do these again next week. And hopefully we have something more positive to talk about. Hopefully the Giants come up a win. I hope I get to take a victory shot tomorrow. We'll see. But
Chris, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Yesterday, I believe it was, I just hit 1,000 followers on TikTok, on Fireside
awesome,
Giants
man.
TikTok. So that was huge. I posted one video, and it was of I made it about the 2 no calls that happened in the Dallas game. It was the non-call pass interference on Anthony Brown in the end zone on Kadarius Tony, and the other one was Devontae Booker's receiving touchdown that didn't get called for a face mask because he ripped his helmet clean off his head. And that one blew up, got to like 150,000 views, and they got me up to 1,000 followers. So I want to thank you for getting me involved in this and choosing this as a possible career path and giving me the platform that I have. I really appreciate it.
No,
everybody,
dude.
Please go follow us on Fireside Giants. I'm not going to take all the credit. What's kind of crazy is I'm here, all these Giants fans at this wedding, and one of the groomsmen, huge Giants fan. They all went to like Ohio State or Penn State or whatever, so they're all like huge Saquon fans or Zeke fans or whatever. And I'm talking about just Giants Twitter to one of them, and one of them is like, I really briefly mentioned Alex Wilson's name, and he's like, oh, Alex Wilson, oh yeah, I love that guy. I'm like, that's my boss. He was just like, he's like, no way, you work for Fireside Giants. I'm like, yeah, I run their TikTok. He's like, I love your videos. That's you. I can hear the voice now. It was surreal being able to hear that. So
awesome,
everybody, please go support us on Fireside Giants on TikTok. Hit me up at Nicky Sav on ESM on Twitter. Really appreciate all the love and support.
And Michael says you're doing the Knicks first. Yeah, I'm doing not every. I never want to say every, but as many Knicks games as I can do. And I'm going to be doing a live stream the night before the first game on Tuesday. So I'll have a live show talking exclusively Knicks on Tuesday. I'll be doing the game on Wednesday. Yeah, man, I appreciate that, man. Listen, I always try to have as many Giants fans on the channel as I can. And Diehard says 2 minutes behind in the. Oh, you don't have to apologize, man. I appreciate the support. You never do anything, man. But again, man, you guys have a great rest of your night. Enjoy the game tomorrow. Let's hope the Giants get a win because I'm sick of losing. And be good, everybody. You guys have a great rest of your night.
See ya.
All right, thanks.
See ya.